never listened to the song Cousins, but I'm sure as hell not going to listen to it now. This show exists for one reason and one reason only. If somebody could get this to Kanye, all I wanted to do tonight was get out the message to him. Kanye, you don't have to put everything on the internet. And that's coming from me. I put way too much on the internet. Bro, you could keep some things to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, my partner shared that with me, and I thought it was fake when she first sent it to me. I was like, no way. She was like, no, this is real.
There's been so many things this week. Obviously, the Cousins thing being what you're referring to, but then also like his weird rant about how he should have married Paris Hilton instead of Kim Kardashian, because then he'd have kids and hotels. I'm like, dude, you used to be worth $4 billion. Like, the reason you don't have hotels now is because you decided to be a Nazi.
Yeah.
Like, that's the reason. I don't know. By the way, do you know, with everything going on, does YouTube now still demonetize you really quick if you within the first 2 minutes say Nazi? Because if so, this episode may already have lost ad revenue. I don't know.
Maybe, but we do know that being one of those, I mean, we've already said the word, but being a Nazi is bad for business. Elon Musk lost like $100 billion. Luckily, he had 300 extra billion on top of that to lose. But isn't that crazy that you can lose $100 billion and still be worth $300 billion? But yeah.
And it was enough that apparently, like, when everybody's like, he doesn't do it for the money. None of this is about the money to him. He's rich enough. It's not about the money. And then like, you lost a lot of money. He's like, well, I guess I have to leave Doge now.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I've discovered I can do some impressions, but I can't do Elon. So if you just do a bit of a Western European with peanut butter in your mouth, people will be like, that's not Elon, but I like it as an impression. So it's fine.
Hey, yeah, or if it's just sort of like, so the thing of it, if it's the rocket science, it's quite interesting. But they actually, you just don't actually say any sentences. You don't ever complete a thought, and you're a brilliant genius who's got so much going on in your head that you can't finish a sentence.
The peanut butter in the mouth sound, I think, is the main important thing to me. I think if somebody thinks you have peanut butter in your mouth, you've basically nailed it. Who are we willing to debate tonight? Anybody, really, about anything that we disagree with them on. But I'd especially love to talk to some MAGA people, because the MAGAs were so brave back in November to call in and tell us everything about how everything's just going to be so much better. And then it isn't better. And I'd love to hear, what is your current defense? Go ahead and explain to us the 4D chess your guy is allegedly playing. I'd love to hear that. If I hear 4D chess again, too, from people who can't play 2D chess, right?
Or like chess, not checkers. That's the other one. Chess, not checkers. And it's like, you don't know what either one of those things is.
Right.
Right. You don't know, like, but yeah, chess, not checkers. I'd love to hear that as well. Of like what's the move here? Because you always hear kind of contradictory things about why the tariffs are a brilliant move. They'll go, oh, well, this gives us leverage at the negotiating table. And they'll also say the tariffs are going to help pay for tax cuts. And it's like, well, it can't be both. Right. It can't be that tariffs are good for paying for stuff and that they're just a negotiating tool. It can't be both.
Which one's good?
It's just...
And then it's fun this week to watch him basically describe, like, okay, well, the tariffs on China, they're not going to be staying like that, but they're not going to zero because they never were zero. And now, like, looking at his plan, it's starting to look a little bit like his big exciting plan was, I'm going to take the tariffs and I'm going to put them right back to where they were before. And the only thing we lost was the confidence of the world as an economic leader. That's our guy.
The plan was to fuck everything up and then unfuck it and say, look what I did for you. Right. And they love that shit. They love that playbook. They love when their guy just comes in, causes chaos, fixes the chaos that he created, and then says, look what I did for you. They love it. They love that stuff.
There is something funny about the like how bad he can do. It's one of those things where it's like Biden or Obama could have done like anything, like the slightest misspoken word, and it was like, well, here is a clear example how I don't think people people are like, okay, we want Donald Trump because he was a great businessman. We want a businessman. And he's been being very consistent. The question is, what did Trump do more? Bankrupt companies he started or have successful companies? Because we're starting to look a little bit more like the fucking casinos, which how do you fuck up a casino? Like the house always wins. How did Donald Trump actually fuck up a casino?
Yeah, I think it was more than one too. I might be wrong about that, but I think that it was more than one casino. But even just one is, it's like, that's a kind of, it's supposed to be a foolproof business. If you can afford to own a casino, it's just a money making.
It prints the money for you. You're right.
Yeah.
And there's other things too, where it's like, it seems like he did a lot of investments because it's like, well, this is safe because everybody likes it. Trump steaks, they're going to be great. Which when have you ever heard that steaks are having a difficulty selling unless we're in like deep recession or something? The dude couldn't sell steaks. Doesn't help that he literally eats his medium, or not medium rare. That's the right temperature. Donald Trump, did you know he eats his steaks rare with ketchup?
I thought it was well done. I thought he was a well done guy.
Once again, I said the wrong thing. Well done with ketchup. You're right.
Yeah,
well done with ketchup.
He likes them burnt. So He just likes everything bad. He just likes, it has terrible taste. Ties are too long. Awful. So, it's like there's a way to do bronzer on your skin if you want it to look natural and cool. I don't think white people should be doing bronzer. I just think that leave your skin the shade that it is. It's fine. Just be pasty, be pale. But I think that whatever, there's a way to do it that doesn't look objectively clownish. And he whoever does it for him, it's like, oh, why do you do the guy so dirty? But apparently he prefers it to look like that. Like he wants the raccoon eyes and the neck that's a different shade than the face. And so he likes everything bad. Everything likes the steak the wrong way.
Yeah.
Loves, for the worst. Not only does he like McDonald's, but he likes the worst things on the McDonald's menu.
Right.
The filet of fish. And,
Yeah. I will say chicken nuggets. Oof. By the way, it's I just asked because I knew somebody who's an expert on it and it all got it. It's actually not even bronzer. It's orange color corrector. It's a color correction cream that people would use it. Like you would use it. That color is recommended to you if you have a certain thing where it's going to counter the color you have. And it's going to neutralize it. He just spreads it all on and you can see when his hair gets blown back, it's like up to the lines. And apparently he's just putting it on himself. Usually you would use it in just an area. So if you had an area here where you had whatever the opposite of orange would be on your skin, but that the orange could blend it into the rest of your skin. It's meant to just be on spots. It's just blotches. And I literally just messaged somebody who I knew what the product was and how it works. And yeah, you're supposed to just put on spots and he just, am I pretty now, Daddy? Fred. Anyway.
Can you imagine how funny that is to get stuck in a spot where you've been wearing this orange color corrector so long for so many years and you know that it looks bad, but you're like, if I stop doing it, then people are going to know that it's going to be some kind of admission that my ego's admitting that I made a, it's like to say, he can never change certain things about his style. He can never start wearing his ties shorter and he can, because he has to commit to the bit. He has to be like, no, this is cool. No, this is how this is cool.
I assume you saw him at the Pope's funeral.
No.
Oh my God. Hilarious in a way. Okay. Here's the thing. I would do the exact thing he did, but I would do it to be a dick. He did it because he just won't break free of whatever he considers his brand. Every single person in the audience, when you look at it, the whole flood of people in black suits and black dresses, he is the only one there. The etiquette, the dress code was black suit, only one in a blue suit. I'm not kidding. You just see him in the middle blue and everybody else black at the Pope's funeral, which if it was a statement, is a baller move, but it's only a statement of his narcissism. I would have loved, I will say, I'm not one to shit on people for, I've taken a lot of shit for this. Austin, I'll actually give you this position. You might disagree and you can give me shit back if you need to, but I am not one to like mince words on Suits. He made a mistake. I am the one here who has fought Jordan Peterson on so many things, but will fight anybody who wants to shit on Jordan Peterson for his suits, because those suits are snazzy as fuck. I don't know why people are shitting on Jordan Peterson's suits are, and I mean this unironically. This is not a joke. Everybody always wants to, oh, he looks like whatever. They are fucking so nice, so good. I wish I had his money and the access to that, because those suits are fucking. It recently had like kind of a dark green, but then it had this like lime green like trim to it, and everybody's like, "Oh, what is he, the Riddler?" And I was like, "Bro, this is clearly if he was on our side, we'd all be talking about how hot that shit looks, because it does. It looks good." Anyway,
I can give you that. I think that sometimes we just like to dog on people who we disagree with ideologically, no matter what they do, because so many conservatives are poorly dressed, and like they have, there's a lot that's been made about this, that what conservatives, I watched a video on YouTube recently about how they will just sort of take style, like lately they've been dressing more like progressive hipster people from Brooklyn in the last 5 years. They've been adopting certain styles that were more popular in the teens and the 20 teens with progressive people. And like, this is like what happened with like skinhead stuff, right? Like, is punks wore in punk culture, they would wear braces and shave their heads, but it wasn't tied to white supremacy. And then white supremacists were like, that's kind of a cool badass look, so they took it. And that's why there's like anti-Nazi punks who always say stuff like shaved head and braces doesn't make a something like that. It's like there's like people who are like, hey, no, we're not fucking Nazis. Like they stole it from us. They stole the look, and they don't have like any original fashion sense. And when you actually give them a chance to show their own original fashion sense, it's usually terrible. It's usually just like American flags and awful pattern clashes. So the fact that Jordan Peterson has any kind of unique riz at all is commendable.
Can you imagine though, if you were like part of one of those religious organizations or something, who like, you just open a shop because you just think the symbol of your religion is so awesome and shit, and it's like 1930, we'll say 1932, and you're like, oh my God, my swastika shop is gonna be so, the people are gonna love it. Look at how clean the lines are, and then it's like nothing will ever ruin the swastika. It feels kind of a little bit like that, the switching of the white supremacist stuff. Because, I assume people know listening, the swastika is not only a Nazi symbol. It is kind of now only a Nazi symbol. I feel like most of the people who use it as a religious symbol have more lately been like, yeah, we'll be fine without it. We're okay associating not without it. It is, I did see that as one of the Kanye defenses when he started wearing it, where people are like, how do you even know that that's actually a swastika? Because it could come from, where is it from? I know Hinduism uses it, and I want to say there's even a Buddhist symbol that says swastika, but I don't know. Anyway, don't start
like the Roman salute thing.
Or somebody like discovered that it makes the perfect like throwing ninja star, and they're like, I'm going to sell these bad boys, and then Hitler invades Poland, and you're like, damn it. Can't do it now.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Anyway, I've seen a couple of people try to call and then they disconnected. People, we want to talk to you. We want to hear your defense. We'll be cool with you. Don't worry. You can make your best. And here's the deal. Like, we've got how many people watching right now? So far, 650 people. We'll have more coming in, especially if you're here. You have a chance to pitch and to change minds and stuff. Even if you don't think you're going to change the 2 of ours, you got a chance. So you're saying there's a chance, and there is a chance. So
yeah,
someone said I sound like I'm in a box. Is my mic weird to you?
Not to me. Could they be talking about me?
No, they said Jimmy's audio sounds like he's in a box. I've got my dick in a box. My dick in a box, babe, but can't stand up.
Classic.
During this episode. It was a good one.
Yeah, we need some people to call in and tell us why it's okay to arrest judges and why it's okay to deprive people of due process. I don't think people really understand what was. I've seen so many different MAGA people telling me that what was going on is that judge was obstructing justice, and she was obstructing, a law enforcement procedure, and she was aiding and abetting criminals. What was actually happening is ICE was waiting outside of immigration courts and arresting people regardless of how their hearing went. So they could have a hearing where they were told, oh, you're good. Everything checks out here. You've got all the proper documentation. You've been doing all the things that you need to do to extend your visa or whatever it is. And regardless of how the hearing went, as soon as they'd walk out of court, they were getting arrested. So this judge just said, how about you guys just use the side door? Just go out the side door so you can avoid ICE. And they said, that's obstruction of justice. No, it's obstruction of criminal activity. Right. She's not allowing ICE to be criminals. Like, and they send the FBI to arrest. It's like, and the line I keep seeing from MAGA is, well, no one's above the law. It's like, yeah, I guess no one but you, right?
Right.
It's so fucking ironic to hear MAGA say no one's above the law. It's like, you guys are we get to break the laws and get away with it party. That's your whole thing. So all of a sudden,
obstruction of justice is the thing I'm the most worried about. Please do not ask about denial of due process, which would, in a philosophical way, would be much more significantly obstruction of justice. Oh, by the way, guys, I'd like to remind you that your president, convicted felon, never spent a day in prison. But, we just want justice to be served. At least a few of you in chat have said that you are MAGA and would be willing to call and defend it. So we're ready. And by
we're
a
sitting
few
right
of you,
here.
I think 2 in the live chat who actually responded to the vote. But we're ready for you. 720-619-2288, 720-619-2288. In the meantime, we do have a caller. We'll talk to JC. JC in Texas. Is JC short for Jesus Christ? Did we meet him? Are you the one and only?
No, it's actually different, but you're close. I had a really quick question for you guys. What's up, Jimmy? What's up, Austin? I wanted to ask, what is your strategy to research information regarding politics in the most non-biased information as possible? I know it's a little bit different than what I put, but yeah, that's my question.
I just believe whatever CNN tells me. What about you, Austin?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I just do whatever the mainstream media says, as long as it's not Fox News. No, I'm just kidding. Honestly, my like the process that I go through whenever I hear a story, if I jump on Threads and somebody's saying, oh, guess what? They just filed the papers for an impeachment process. Rather than just going, oh, I saw it on Threads. That's great. One post. What I will do is go, the first place I'll go to is like Google, type that in, see how many different outlets are reporting this, and see if there's a wide range of different outlets that are reporting it. I'll try to do a skim of at least 4 different sources to make sure that the story seems like it's being reported consistently across different sources, and just check to make sure that it does seem like it's a verified story with verified sources that are offering these outlets the information that they're reporting on. But I'm not usually I don't get on like a browser with a VPN and try to do a bunch of like deep diving back channel stuff. I just try to basically make sure that it is something that feels like it is being at least the surface level details are being reported the same across the board. Like when
real quick, JC, I'm going to beg you to stop breathing directly into your mic. Go on, Austin.
Yeah. It's you're breathing real heavy into the phone there.
We're good,
but we're good. Yeah, sounds great. But yeah, like when there was a guy named Juan Carlos Gomez. I can't remember his full name. I think it was Juan Carlos Gomez Marcos or something like that. He was from Florida, and he was one of the first people with an American birth certificate, American Social Security card, who was picked up by ICE, and he was a citizen. And this was after like we had been talking for a few days with the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case about like they're going to come after citizens next because the MAGA crowd kept saying, oh, well, it's not going to happen to citizens. If you're a legal citizen, this will never happen to you. And we were saying, of course it's going to happen. He's talking about going after homegrowns. And then this guy from Florida, it happened. And the first place I saw reporting on it was Fox News. And it was a Fox. And so like, that's a great place for me to go, hey, if Fox News has it first, and when I read their article, it definitely reads different than an MSNBC article, but the key details are the same. Like the guy's name is the same. The fact that he did have a valid birth certificate and social security card was that's all in there. They have a different bias tilt to the way that they're telling the story, but the key details are the same, enough to the point where I can say, I think this is a real thing that actually happened. There's ways I think that you can verify that the key details of something are accurate. And then you have to just sort of get good, I think, at interpreting spin from these different outlets of like, what's the particular ideological spin that they want to put on it. And I think that you can kind of mostly just ignore that stuff and try to think, what is my personal take on the key details of this story? I don't know, Jimmy, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. I mean, if you're looking for something simple, I wish we had a sponsorship from Ground News, but we don't. But Ground News sponsor us. Ground News is great. They'll show you on any given particular topic. They'll basically curate the stories that are big, but they'll also then show you like, how much is this story being covered by the right versus by the left? And that's usually more typically like American right versus left. There's no doubt though, when it comes to other stuff, like when you're going through and you're verifying things, I like to, any big stories, I like to verify against some international sources, because you can find that international sources will often be a lot less biased. That's why like CNN International is considered one of the greatest news sources in the world. And CNN Local, which is the one I was joking about at the beginning, is considered kind of a joke. I don't care if Jake Tapper is handsome. And that seems to be all they care about. Anyway, there's a lot of comparing to some of the international coverage. And then obviously like going to the places where the originating sources and seeing what information they're including and how that adapts. But Ground News would be a great starting point for anybody, I would say. And then I actually really like to use an AI called Perplexity to gather a lot of news, because Perplexity is essentially a sourcing AI. So they describe themselves as the hallucination-free AI, because you can actually kind of use it similar to Ground News, and it will source every answer it gives rather than doing like the LLM thing of making up an answer if it doesn't know something. And it will also reference all of the different, like it can utilize Claude or ChatGPT or even Grok, or there's a couple others that it will utilize in making its answers. And so doing what we colloquially call research, because I think it's kind of a joke the way we use the word research nowadays, including in that context, what we would colloquially call research, I find Perplexity to be an extremely powerful AI for that as well.
Yeah, I was also just going to say about the international stories thing too. It's like my whole spiel was just about stuff that's more happening in America, like, stuff that's happening more locally. But I do find that it's kind of hard to trust most American sources when it comes to certain situations. It's really hard to find unbiased reporting on Israel and Palestine. Most American news outlets are pretty heavily allied and even have funding that is tied to Israel, and it's hard to find unbiased reporting on that. So you have to kind of look at like what are like UN security reports and things like that. It's hard to parse through. There's a lot of propaganda that comes out from there's just certain storylines internationally that it's hard to keep track of, like what's the actual thing that's going on here, because mainstream news sources will just straight up print lies, just fake, just stuff that's not real, and then you do have to kind of do some digging to figure out what the actual story is, and it can be a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, perfect. What I gathered, so like, would y'all think that like, even though you have certain different political biases, whether it be to the left or right, would each like reporting might have some, I'm trying to figure out how to rephrase this. Like this happened, but they would spin it in a way that it would make them look better, if that makes sense.
But as in that it'd be more consistent with their ideology. Happened. Yeah, that's going to be true across the board. I will say, if I were
to read
reality, the longer you do it, the more you start to realize that reality, by the way, here's a topic somebody can call in to argue about if you wanted. Reality tends to have a left lean, and I don't mean American left, I mean left lean. And then it does also inform some of the people who, but I'll tell you, I listen to people I disagree with greatly on things, and some of them because I find them entertaining. I know that there's one of the most popular podcasts in the US is called Pivot, and it features Scott Galloway and Kara Griffin. Is that her name? Kara something. Anyway, I listen to a lot of those shows, even though they are kind of capitalist swine, honestly, but there's something about them I very much like. And it's nice to know what the people who are our allies the most anyway, as leftists, that we have the most chance at allying with to get things done. It's kind of nice to know what they're saying, even though they're kind of wildly wrong. But then I'm also going to trust somebody who is incentivized, like you're saying, JC, but has shown in the past that they can be more well-reasoned, like Mehdi Hassan, when we're talking about something happening in Gaza. Then I'm going to go with anybody on the right who, my whole life, I thought even after becoming an atheist, I thought everything was pretty clear what was happening over there with Israel and Gaza, only to come to find out that I had been lied to about so much. And now seeing where all of that information comes from. It's also hard. It's hard to take seriously anybody who's anchored in something like Christianity, because Fox News is basically Christian news, because it's I already know what mistake you make when evaluating information that is core to your beliefs. And so you weigh everything as best you can, and you're going to get shit wrong. But yes, Kara Swisher, you're right. The tech sellout. They both talk about how Bill Maher is their hero sometimes, and you can tell they're really uncomfortable right now because they know he definitely crossed some lines. Though Scott Galloway, for being a capitalist Democrat sort of shill, he is very pro taxing the rich. You would say he's further left as far as Democrats go than even a lot of liberals, but then he tries to pretend like he thinks appealing to moderates is the right way, but appealing to them with some leftist issues. Anyway, he actually was supposed to be on that night on Bill Maher's show, but he said no when they also booked Steve Bannon because of that. So I was like, holy crap. Of guys I never expected to show some balls and be this guy who talks about his balls on his podcast all the time.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I have like two quick questions if you want to just do yes and no and then get to a different caller. One, did I hear you correctly in saying that you said that the world in general, not America, was left-leaning in politics?
No. I'm saying that
reality.
The definition of left, reality and truth leans left. And then left politics, left means something different on the world stage than it does in the U.S.
Oh, okay. Cool. I agree with that. The second question, you just said something at the end. I completely forgot the question. So darn, I fucking forgot the question. I'm sorry.
Was it something about at the end we were talking about Bill Maher at the end and talking about strategy of appealing to moderates or with leftist ideas, stuff like that. Wasn't anything in there?
No, it was literally mid sentence. It's my ADHD ass brain, but
my bad.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I don't think it was necessarily an important question. So if you want to go ahead and get to color, that was the questions I asked. That was great. I appreciate it.
Do you know any MAGA people you could send our way? Call one of your MAGA family members and be like, yo, call this right now. Show these guys what's up.
I do have two brothers who is an RFK Jr. lover. So
get them. Let's do it. Let's fucking do it.
I really wish, but yeah, I will maybe get them to call some other time because I don't know if I'll have to talk to them about it. But yeah.
Hell yeah.
Threads really hates it when you post a YouTube link. I posted this YouTube. They hate it. They hate it over because I usually, I never get views if I post a link, but I wonder if there's a way for me to do it where I say, go over here and I don't post the link.
Bypass. I thought about only posting the phone number, but that feels like you're tricking somebody. Like, call me. They don't realize it's like you're on the line in front of thousands of people. Anyway. All right. Thank you, JC.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, JC.
Right. Thank you.
Sorry about your crucifixion. But actually, to that end, the only people I've seen call in have also hung up again. So
we'll also take calls from theists. If you just want to call in and tell us why the Bible is right and why we're going to hell, you can tell us that too. We'll take that call.
Are you as confused as I am? So obviously Luigi Mangione just pled not guilty, prosecutors pursuing death penalty. He was hanging out at my place that morning, and then wasn't he with you all afternoon that day? I don't understand.
It's crazy. I don't get how he possibly. I from the beginning I've been saying this. From the beginning I've been saying we were together that day.
States
That's my
away.
guy.
Right. Yeah, you're in Cali, I'm in Texas. It's
but the mainstream media they got their agenda. They're gonna spin it. So I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy.
And then of course
I was at Universal Studios a few weeks ago, and they have their new Super Nintendo World going on, and we were riding the like Mario Kart ride, and the guy who was like who worked there, like the attendant, before you go into the ride, he was like, we got any Princess Peach fans? And people were like, oh yeah, because there's like all these little kids. He's like, how about Mario fans? Yeah. And then he goes like, any Luigi fans in here? And I just was like, let's go. And like I feel like I was the only one who cheered, and I was like, I don't know if anyone in here is getting the same thing out of what he just said as me. I don't know. It's in my brain immediately. I'm like, hey, we all like that, right? We're all cool with.
Nothing will be as legendary to me as Bill Burr doing years of comedy shitting on feminism and gathering like an audience, and then earlier this year just on a video yelling "Free Luigi." Nothing will be as good as that to me. That's just so wonderful. So, chef's kiss.
Yeah.
We got some calls getting screened right now. We'll see what
comes up.
Yeah, we'll see what comes through here. Also, apparently the news developing today, as though we're doing the podcast. By the way, everybody, The Line is a podcast. Sorry that there wasn't an episode this week. We were going to have to delay from our recording time by a day. And then on that day, my AC, the dude who was supposed to come out and fix it, kept having to push by hours and hours, and ended up not happening again. So we're just decided to. New episode will be out on Monday, but we've talked about the news again. Anyway, The Line is a podcast on YouTube and places where you find podcasts. There's like a bunch of them. Mm-hmm. You see the news today too that Trump's like, to my surprise, it turns out Putin may not be willing to end the war, even if we give him everything he's taken so far. He's like literally finding out. It's almost surprising from Putin, because it's like, yo, you got your guy in. You probably want to look a little bit like take the stuff and then reinvade 2 days later and pretend it's something different. It's wild to me that you're sitting here not willing.
I really did like the Vladimir Stop tweet that, I guess, I don't know what you call it on Truth Social. I guess you call it like a truth.
Yeah, it's
or something.
To be a truth, yeah.
But the Vladimir Stop thing was pretty funny. I was like, that's maybe one of the funniest things that I've ever seen a president say ever. Like, Vladimir, stop. Don't stop. What are you doing? I was like, that's wild. That's a quote for the history books. The president posted, Vladimir, stop.
I am not happy with the Russian strikes on Kyiv. Not necessary and very bad timing. Vladimir, all caps, stop. 5,000 soldiers a week are dying. Let's get the peace deal done. One of the things that he always talks about how high the death toll is getting, as though like that's going to be the thing that compels either side. But Vladimir is the aggressor. And from the onset, Russians have been dying way more than the Ukrainians. The death toll is like, it's something crazy. Russians die way more than Ukrainians in this whole thing. In fact, let me find out what the death toll is. So if that doesn't compel him, it's literally like, I'm not going to stop it over. They're not my dead bodies. They're fucking kids and now North Koreans that I'm sending. What's the death toll? Ukraine versus Russia today. Let's find out. It's going to be something whack. I remember the first time I saw the numbers, I was like, whoa, how has nobody like just read that number and been like, all right, here's a poison cake. Someone go give this to Vladimir. This is crazy. So wait, this is the combined number. I want the separate number. Give the separate numbers.
Yeah, it is crazy that they've been, kind of getting their asses kicked for as long as they have by such a, relatively smaller and seemingly weaker force.
Yeah, I mean, home field advantage, there is that, but Russian military losses are between 158,000 to 229,000, 611,000 wounded. Ukrainian, so we'll just go with 200,000 for a number right in the middle. Ukrainian, 50 to 80,000. So let's go 65,000 right in the middle. Basically, roughly 3 times as many Russians have died as Ukrainians have died, all for access to the Black Sea, all to make a man who is going to be dead soon, right? Like Putin, how old is Putin now? And like had cancer recently that he's not open about. Putin's 72 years old.
Yeah. And then no one's stepping in and just going, hey, this guy's got to be taken out. Exactly. It's crazy to just say, hey, we way too many of us are dying for this thing that's really not that big of a deal. Do you want to talk to Will here? I like this idea.
I want to talk to Tom more, to tell you the truth.
Oh, really?
Tom's I think here to defend.
Oh, Tom's
MAGA.
a theist and a MAGA. Okay, yeah, that's true. Yeah, let's talk to Tom.
Will, do stay on the line, but for the moment, Tom in Michigan. Tom, you are on the line. Oh, I forgot to take that banner down earlier, but Tom, you are on the line with Jimmy and Austin.
Hey, Jimmy. Austin.
What's up?
Hey.
So you are calling in as a representative of MAGA, I suppose, right?
Yeah, I guess I'd break the ice for you guys, trying to help the show out a little bit.
Oh, right on. We appreciate the favor, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Love it.
But I voted for him 3 times, and hopefully vote for him 4 times.
Hopefully,
well, you know that the Constitution says that you can't do that, right, Tom? So why don't you care about that?
Well, that'd be nice. I like his attitude.
Yeah, you just don't give a shit. Yeah, it would be nice. Yeah, it could be nice to just do something that the Constitution blatantly says you can't do. Would be nice to just say fuck it to the Constitution, right, Tom? Because MAGA doesn't give a shit about the Constitution, right, Tom?
Oh no, we care. I think there might be a loophole.
No, you don't. You just said. You literally just said you want to do something that the Constitution says you can't do. You were like, oh, it would be nice. It'd be nice to do something that the Constitution says we can't do.
You do understand you just use the word loophole, right, Tom? Like a loophole, when you're saying you do care about the Constitution, a loophole, no matter what the thing is, you find a tax code loophole, you're not honoring the spirit of the tax code in that scenario, which, I don't feel as bad about not doing that with the taxes. But if you find a loophole in the Constitution, you are saying you are trying to subvert. You are trying to find the way around the spirit of what the Constitution intended. So let me ask you this, Tom. Were they to find this loophole, are you also comfortable with Barack Obama being his opponent?
Sure, heck yeah.
And do you think Donald Trump could beat? You think Donald Trump could beat Barack Obama? He couldn't beat Joe Biden.
Well, he put Joe Biden down. I mean, whatever you want to call it, debate. It was done. So.
What do you mean? He never took Joe Biden down.
Far gone.
What's that?
I said Joe Biden was so far gone, he shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Sure, neither should have Donald Trump. I agree. I 100% agree that Joe Biden, I don't think we have made a correct presidential choice in some time. Arguably, Barack Obama is important to our nation, but I'm not stoked that we, war criminal still. But, I fully agree Joe Biden shouldn't have ever been there. And actually, I agree that the senility of both men, or at least questions of their mental strength, should have been a disqualifying factor for both of them. Now, I think that's a weird thing for you to stand on because you have lots and lots of mental health experts describing Joe Biden as an individual who appears to be slowing down with age as you do, but not showing signs of slipping into dementia. We just sort of colloquially now call every old person who have slowed down dementia. Dementia has actual symptoms. And if you actually want to track symptoms, Donald Trump is showing signs of dementia. Joe Biden is showing signs of dying soon.
Okay, there you go. But Donald Trump's pretty sharp for a 78-year-old man or whatever he is.
No.
77.
No, he's really not, Tom. He's really not.
you kidding me?
Tom,
Donald
Tom,
Trump
Tom, Tom, do you get Tom, okay, Tom. So when Donald Trump stands on stage at several different speeches in the last few months and just opines on the nature of the word groceries, do you watch that and get like an intellectual boner thinking, look at this guy's brain? When the guy sits there,
that person goes groceries. I mean, what's
what
wrong with
the
talking about
fuck are you talking about, Tom?
No. Tom's being dishonest. Tom's pretending he's talking about groceries. Donald Trump got up there and was saying that nobody even really uses the word groceries anymore, even though every American does. He's so out of touch that groceries just appear in his cabinets. So he doesn't understand people are still going. But how about the other day when he claimed that eggs have gone down 92%? Is that true, Tom?
I think they've gone down a little bit, maybe not 92%.
They haven't. They're up, Tom.
They're still up.
They're up.
So you're saying they've gone down a little. Let's say you were right, that they had gone down a little. Is 92% from the person who ran on eggs an acceptable mistake to make?
Yeah, that's a pretty big mistake. I don't know what the price is or what the actual percentage is, but I know it has gone down.
Right now, the average cost of eggs is $6. It's up.
It's up.
It is up?
Yes,
it's
sir.
Up.
I just bought something. I don't know. I guess it depends where you're at.
How do you feel about the tariffs, Tom?
Well, I think it's an experiment, and I hope it goes good, but it might not go good.
Do you want them experimenting with your 401k? You want them experimenting with thing that every major economist has said? By the way, Republican economists, I don't need to cite a single Democrat or leftist economist to show you that it is well known. I can give you Ben Shapiro, sir. Like, if you want, I can give you the Ben Shapiro rant of you don't do this. This is basic. And every time we have done this before, about every 100 years, we experiment. Like you just said, we experiment with tariffs. You know what happened the last time 100 years ago after we experimented with tariffs? The Great Depression. And then there was another depression 100 years prior to that. It's literally, you're talking about an experiment like it's new. This is the idea of a man named Peter Navarro. Who is Peter Navarro, Tom?
I have no idea.
He is a trade advisor and economist to Donald Trump. He is also anti-trade. So Donald Trump has made an anti-trade person who, by the way, was in prison last year for the shit he was doing during Trump's first term. He has put an anti-trade person in charge. It's weird. It's like somehow finding the one Jewish Nazi to be in charge of immigration. Oh shit, he did that too, Stephen Miller.
Do you want to know my favorite story about?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want to know my favorite part about Peter Navarro, Tom, who is the main guy that Trump got his idea about tariffs from? Mm-hmm. So Peter Navarro wrote a book, and he said that there was this leading economist that justified his stance on his anti-trade stance on and his ideas about tariffs, and he made up an alter ego, and he made an anagram for a different name of his name. He took the name Navarro and made up a guy named Ron Vara. And Ron Vara is not a real guy. He just made up a guy. So like he took the name Navarro and turned it into Ron Vara and said that this is a leading economist who agrees with him. And Donald Trump, the guy that you're like, he's sharp as a tack. Man, Donald Trump is sharp. That guy's sharp. Donald Trump is doing what he's doing because Peter Navarro made up a fake person and pretended that person said that tariffs were a good idea. I'm not lying about that. That's real, Tom.
Right. I mean, it's good to try something new. I don't like the way that it was going. So.
But it isn't new, Tom. Tom, it isn't new.
Okay.
Like,
well, it's 100 years or whatever, like I said.
Right. But it isn't. Last time it was a depression, dude. It's like you're saying, let's try something new. Why don't we try to annex Poland? Well, how'd that go last time, Tom? It's a thing that we know what the result is, and we know it's bad. And by the way, Tom, we know why it's bad. Who pays tariffs, Tom?
Yeah, we do.
Right. So let me ask you this, Tom. If we pay the tariffs, it means it's going to be on goods you consume. Let's say that Trump is right and we take in a ton of money and we do tax cuts. And the tax cuts, you get a little bit of a tax cut, But because people make more money, who make more money, have more money, they get a much bigger tax cut of millions and millions and in a few instances, billions of dollars. They get a huge tax cut, but you are now paying quite a bit more based on the tariffs. So the tariffs are coming in, your prices of everything go up. And Donald Trump is being crazy with these things, like over 100% tariffs in China. So we're talking lots of prices going way, way up. Just hang on, Tom. I just want to make sure that you have this. You're going to pay a lot more, maybe get a little bit of a tax cut. It will not cover. And in fact, right now it looks like your taxes might go up, but let's say you get the cut because they're going to pretend you're going to. You get a little tax cut, but you'll still be paying way more in tariffs, which is itself a type of tax. So you'll be paying more overall in taxes, but your income tax might be lower. And the people who are rich will be paying billions less together, billions, trillions less if you put them all together. Let me ask you, Tom, what happens there? What am I describing? Am I describing something that's great for America, or am I describing that Donald Trump, his policy is literally going to take from regular Americans like you, Tom? I presume you're not rich. I presume we're all middle class here. I hope so. You, a middle-class person, take more cash out of your pocket and give it to rich people just if what he says he's going to do happens by his own words.
Right. Well, I also think that he wants some of the jobs to come back to the United States. So the tariffs will push some of the companies to bring some of the labor back to the United States and create more jobs in the United States.
And that would actually raise the prices even more, Tom. If you make an iPhone in China, from China in America, because we don't have the labor force and the skilled labor to do that, we don't have the fingers here that can put all those things together, you are talking about billions and trillions of dollars in investment into people who, to then get those skills. And it will just be a very limited labor force. So things will come out slower. Innovation will happen slower. And the cost of those will go up. So your iPhone right now, which costs about $1,000, maybe broken up if you do it on installments, but still $1,000, the base price of that would go up to $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to make it in America. It's all jobs no one here wants to do. People aren't trying to go. We live in a nation that as a nation is rich. People in nations like ours are interested in services, they don't want to work in.
Do you remember Jimmy Carter when he was in office, or are you too young, or do you remember that? Or?
I was not alive, but I know plenty about the Carter administration.
Okay. Well, Jimmy Carter, when they had the chair of the NAFTA thing, he said a lot of the jobs like building washing machines and building, whatever, things like washing machines, nobody in the United States wanted. We wanted to go to high tech. So he took all these people that build washing machines and brake pads and all these things, and he shipped it all overseas. I think there's a lot of people in the United States right now that love to be building washing machines and building brake pads and doing all that stuff, bring all that stuff back to the United States.
Is unemployment high or low right now? Yeah, you're definitely wrong. Unemployment is low right now. So you're talking about adding a bunch of jobs. You're talking about adding jobs that right now are overseas so that life is cheaper for us. That because Americans like their cheap goods. So you're talking about skyrocketing the prices and replacing jobs here that will mostly be service industry jobs with lower paying jobs. They're not going to take a job that they're paying on average, $3 an hour, the equivalent of to somebody overseas, and make that a $25 an hour, which is what you need to make right now to survive, a $25 an hour job in America. It's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah, Tom, I have a question for you. Really quick. You said that, you think that there's a lot of people who would want to be making, washing machines and refrigerators and manufacturing jobs basically in America. Do you think that Americans generally would be happier, that the country would be better if we had more manufacturing jobs, people working in factories and working on assembly lines? Do you think that would be good for the country?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you want to work? Personally, do you want to work in a factory on an assembly line and build washing machines? Is that a job you want to do?
I did for 20 years. I worked in a shop. Yeah.
And that's the job, but that's the job you want to have.
Well, I don't do that now, but I did do that for 20 years. Yeah.
You do it for minimum wage? How much? Wait, Tom. How much did you make per hour when you left at the shop you were in?
Like 19 something an hour. That was probably 20 years ago.
So do you really think those people are getting $19 an hour when it comes back from the cheap? By the way, Tom, you're talking about people. Who builds washing machines right now? Do you think it's people?
Well, whoever, machines or whatever. But,
yeah, it's robots. Do you think that we're going to, if let's say we get the factory here, do you think that it's going to be mostly people? There are jobs that are people laden. We don't have the skills to do it. We literally do not have the skills force in America to build iPhones. They don't exist. We'd have to import Chinese people to do it because we don't have that skill force. So that doesn't work because you guys are anti-immigration too. So you're talking about factory jobs that could come over here are literally robot jobs. So it's not that there's going to be thousands, millions of new assembly line jobs. There's going to be dozens to hundreds to maybe a few thousand new supervisory jobs and repair technician jobs that still will not offset the cost of bringing those all over.
And I just wanted to I wanted to finish the reason why I asked the question I asked, though, Tom, is, and you answered in a way that I did, I'll be honest, I didn't expect you to say that you spent most of your career working on an assembly line. I wasn't expecting that. But there's new polling out where they asked a bunch of Americans, they said, the question I asked you, do you think that America would be better off with more manufacturing jobs, people working in factories and on assembly lines? And about 82% of people polled said, yes, they do believe that manufacturing jobs would be good. Then they asked them the follow-up question, would your life be better? Would you personally feel like you were better off with a manufacturing job? And about 75% of those same people said no. So it's all these people saying, yeah, I think manufacturing jobs would be good for the country, just not me. I just don't want to do it. So the fact that, like, you fell outside of what I thought you were going to answer, and I got to give you that. But my point is, like, most people right now aren't hungry for a job on an assembly line and in a manufacturing job. And also, like Jimmy said, most of those jobs are being done by robots anyway. And the cost of the price of what it would cost to actually have those robots in those factories here and have people monitoring them would be passed on to the consumer, and it would just result in more expensive goods. All the way down the line, this is a bad economic proposal.
What percentage of Republican economists have to say unilateral
Why aren't you
tariffs
sure about
are a bad idea, Tom?
I think just bringing jobs back to America would be good no matter what they are. And, whether it's watching machines run or whatever, more jobs in America is always good, I would think. But,
we just explained why. Well, we just explained why certain jobs in America aren't good, because it results in more expensive goods, but by a lot.
Well, it would.
So, right. So how is that good for Americans?
There's more people that have money, more people that have jobs. So, it's got to be a trade-off. It's not going to just be one-sided. It's going to be a little bit of a trade-off.
There is a trade-off. If more people
There is a trade-off.
You're talking about the one individual who, if one individual gets a job who wouldn't have gotten a job before, but the amount of money that he is making or she is making, which, let's be honest, they're trying to do things that they think will appeal to young white men. But whatever. The amount of money that, let's say they make $40,000 a year because some miracle it's not a minimum wage job. If the amount of money that they are making is less than if $40,000 then gets distributed to an increasing cost. Let's talk about coffee. You can't really grow coffee in America. There's very few places. There's not a lot. So if we bring coffee jobs back to America, and it then will skyrocket the cost of coffee, but you're going to have more people who have jobs cultivating coffee crops. So they have jobs, and let's say to pay all of them costs $100,000 a year, but Americans are paying $1 million a year more for their coffee. That's the trade-off. There's more people with jobs, but less money for the people, except for the rich people. Tom, this is why I feel so bad, because I don't think you're a dick. I think you are doing your best. I think I love shop people. I actually have a wood shop. I'm moving, but I'm setting up my new wood shop I'm into that kind of stuff. I love working with my hands. I might be the kind of person who would work some kind of factory job, though if it was monotonous, I would hate it. But if I could be creative in some way, I'd love it. I think you have been duped, Tom. I think that there is a man who basically went, I have so much money. And what is money if it isn't security? I think calling money has made it mean nothing to everybody. units of security that you'll have a home, security that you'll have food, security that you'll be able to entertain yourself, have fun. Like money is security. And he has more security than he or many thousands of people need to be totally secure. And he's looked at his big pile and gone, I have so much security. But Tom has security that I think he could live without. And I would like to make his pile smaller and my pile and the pile of my other friends who have big security piles bigger at the cost of his. He is literally, by doing these tariffs, transferring money from your pocket. And if you said you made $19 an hour, I assume that means your wife had to work too and that you don't own a home yourself or anything. You can't. Maybe you got in beforehand. I don't know how old you are, but $19 an hour, you are not buying a house in this country.
That's 20 years ago.
Sorry?
Well, that's 20 years ago when I was working.
Okay, 20 years ago. Maybe you could then. You definitely can now. So, yeah, you're saying $19 an hour 20 years ago, by the way, which means like what? More like what would be the equivalent of $33, $34 an hour now is what you're describing. And so those manufacturing jobs that are coming over are especially not paying that. He has put into a policy that will take the money out of your pocket. You will actually pay more in taxes, but your income tax might go down a little, but overall taxes you'll pay in a year will go way up. And then rich people will have a much bigger tax cut, which you will have paid for. Tom, I honestly, you're not the kind of MAGA person that calls in that I want to be like, you fucking monster, you piece of shit, you put us here. You just want to hurt people you disagree with. You want to protect only Christians, and everybody else who's not white or Christian should be afraid to live here. You don't seem like that guy. You seem like the guy who's just doing your best going through life, and you're probably a bit isolationist, and that tends to be the dividing line. Republicans tend to care more about just taking care of themselves and their family, and people on the left and liberals and Democrats, they tend to have more of a concept of like a slightly bigger communities in the case of like moderates to then actually just everybody if you get into full-blown leftism. And I get that. And I even get the appeal because I really don't care on a personal level about anybody who isn't in my immediate bubble, but in a sort of existential level, I do. And that's why I'm a leftist. I don't hate you for it. I just think you've been duped, man. I think he's literally I think you voted for a guy who hates you and who is taking your money that you don't have an abundance of just to make his pile a little bigger.
Well, he's only been there for 90 days. So I guess we'll just have to give him another, a year or two, see what happens. I mean,
sir, 4 years. He was 4 years, and the inflation you saw during the Biden administration. Again, if you study economics, this isn't something I'm making up. The inflation that happened during the with Biden, inflation happens on a delay. The tax cuts that Trump did, don't get me wrong, COVID did some of it too. Supply chain did some of it too. But the explosion that Biden then recovered from in a way that other countries across the world failed to meet, our recovery was stronger than any other one, are literally from exploding the deficit and passing those rich people tax cuts back in his first administration. So when you say we'll see, we've seen, sir, it's already fucked you.
Well, I drove to Florida in 2020, right before COVID, and I was paying, $1.99 for gas?
Mm-hmm.
And that was before before COVID and all that stuff. So
right.
Biden got in there and went up to $4. And even, let's look at this. When
we just explained that, Tom. Just explain that.
Yeah,
just explain that.
Let me make this point. Barack Obama is $4 a gallon, and everybody's saying, it's always going to be $4 a gallon, and it probably would have been $4 a gallon or more if Donald Trump didn't get in office. And Donald Trump got in office.
What policy? No, hang on. What policy did Donald Trump pass that made oil cheaper?
Drill, baby, drill.
No, sir. We all, then Biden's wouldn't have changed. We had more. We used more from the reserves under Biden. There are all these numbers where you're like, no, the world had an abundance of oil. The president actually does not influence very much the price of oil. You can probably justify a few things, but for the most part, it is just greedy companies who are, because everything is traded on the stock market, stock value. Do you know as a CEO, whether it's funny how many people don't understand this. So I'm just going to see if you do. Tom, if every year my company makes $5 billion exactly in profit, would I be considered a successful or a failed CEO?
Probably successful.
Incorrect. In our country, you are a failed CEO if your profits are the same. Because we are on the stock market, if it's 5 billion every year, that means the share price isn't going up. So you are actually only successful if next year you make 6 billion and it's 7 billion, which then incentivizes the companies to do shitty things, pass costs along to the consumers, and cut the wages of their employees. Both of those things happened during Republican administrations. Both of them.
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of Republicans either because they shipped a lot of jobs overseas too. So, but I think the MAGA movement is a little bit of a different Republican.
Companies ship them overseas, sir. It's, I mean, I get it. Republicans allow it to happen, but it's not even.
Right. Exactly. Over when Clinton was in office, and they had the NAFTA. Republicans are right there. Patting Clinton on the back. Oh yeah, let's ship all the jobs overseas, and because we don't want to build any dishwashers here. We don't want to build any microwaves here. We want to.
I don't even know why you keep bringing this. I pass a Samsung factory in Texas pretty often. They're building stuff like that in Texas. So there are things we do build here, but it's going to be more compiling and stuff because we can't have certain jobs that are low cost. By the way, there's a person in the chat. I have to disagree with Jimmy on that. Plenty are willing to do those jobs. No, they aren't. They aren't. Because when you're saying those jobs does not just mean, would I be willing to sit there and boom, boom, assemble and just do that on assembly line all day? There's a lot of people who say no to that by itself just because of the monotony. We're not just talking about that though. I'm not just saying people are not willing to go boom, boom, bah, boom, boom, bah, and then go home and their things. I'm saying no one is going to do that for the cost, for the wage that we would have to do to keep prices under doing any more than doubling or tripling by bringing them to America. No one is going to do that for $8 an hour. If you could get $8, the federal minimum wage is $7.25. That's what a lot of these jobs would be.
Well, hard to say, but I know in like my little town, there's a lot of factories that closed up after NAFTA, probably a half a dozen, and they all just went over to Mexico and China and wherever else they went. So
yes,
a lot of people lost their jobs.
Economies develop that way though, man. Like I don't know what to tell you. There's a lot of people who are still, a lot of people went out of business too because the horse-drawn carriage industry, those factories are gone as well. And car factories replaced them. And then other countries still exist and started making better cars. It's not a matter of they aren't going overseas arbitrarily. They're out-competed first. So the Tesla factories that are eventually going to go overseas, they're going to go overseas because they're going to get put out of business. But what's the name of the electric car that China's making for like a third of the price of Temu's the name of that website, but they've got one that's like actually an impressive car. It kind of is a Temu car, but it's kind of a ripoff, but it's way, way cheaper. And so it's not a matter of the factory. Like we just went, all right, we're going to do an agreement. Fuck Elon Musk, fuck Tesla. Let's go ahead and close Tesla and open the factory, or let's move the Tesla American factories to China, which by the way, Elon Musk did. He did start making stuff. He does have Chinese Tesla factories. But it's not as though we're going to be doing that. They get out-competed internationally. And so then people in America start working with those kinds of countries. And by the way, that is a place where sometimes you can justify using tariffs. Unilateral tariffs are stupid. BYD is the name of the car from the Temu Chinese electric car.
I know you keep bringing up China, but China's slave labor. I mean, you're basically talking about, a lot of United States, we live off slave labor, whether you like it or not. Your phone you're talking to, slave labor. The shoes you're wearing is slave labor. So we're basically living off slave labor just like they did 250 years ago.
In some cases, that's true. However, in a lot of cases, that is an outdated, like for example, I understand. I'm not saying that slavery isn't quite the right word, but there's a lot of underpaid labor, certainly on the Asian continent. A lot of countries now, if you are in America, are held to, they often fail to hold up to a standard, but you are required to work with companies that are paying fair wages and the like.
Well, I don't know. China's a little different place over there. Like I say, we're all living off slave labor, whether you like it or not. That's what we're doing.
We've been going through
labor, but we're fucking wage slaves in America.
Right. Well, yeah.
It's all relative to whatever the average cost of living is in a particular place. Can people actually live in that place and pay for their? But you're not wrong that there are a lot of places, and I think that Jimmy makes a good point about calling it unethical labor. But we've been going through a lot of different points. I'm still curious about going back to the spot of, you said you remember in January of 2020 driving down to Florida and paying $1.99 for gas, and you also said earlier that, it's just the first 90 days of the new Trump administration, of the second Trump administration. We've got to give them a chance. We've got to wait and see. But what I remember, anecdotally, is that you guys were putting stickers on gas pumps in January of 2021 when Joe Biden had just been inaugurated, and people were putting stickers on gas pumps saying, "I did that," even though we all knew that the global price of gas was up because of the COVID-19 pandemic. That the natural result of people driving less meant that there was less demand, and that costs went up for gas across the entire globe. And we also know, like Jimmy said, that inflation happens on a delay. So we were getting hit twice. We were getting hit with the COVID-19 inflation of gas prices, and we were also getting hit with inflation from Trump's tax policies, and Joe Biden had to recover from that. So you just said we got to give Trump more time. It's only been 90 days. But with the Biden administration, you were like, day one, gas prices aren't where I like them. This is a disaster, right?
Biden shut down the pipeline. That would have made us gas a lot cheaper, and he shut the pipeline down. So he was in direct the reason why gas went up, because he shut down.
It was already up.
And then he opened the pipeline. Then he opened the pipeline in Russia. So he's okay to open the pipeline in Russia, but he shut ours down. So, I can see, if you're going to say it's environmentally right or whatever, wrong or whatever, okay, do it for both countries. But don't shut down one.
Is gas $1.99 right now?
No, I don't know what it is. $3.09, I think, after you just read.
Yeah, the average price is up again.
But Trump, like I say, he opened up everybody's eyes, saying, okay, because Barack Obama said, no, it's going to be $4 a gallon. We're not going to be able to get any lower than that, or whatever, blah, blah, whatever the literary or whatever you're saying. And then Trump said, no, we're going to get it down to $2.50 a gallon, and he did. And it just opened everybody's eyes.
When's he going to get us down?
All of a sudden, Trump did it. That opened a lot of people's eyes.
When's he going to get it down this time? Because, by the way, it also skyrocketed in his term, despite the fact that he supposedly was filling our reserves and didn't. But when's he going to get it down this time? Because, like you said, it was fine to criticize Biden right away. It seemed you agreed with it. It was fine to criticize him right away. But right now, Donald Trump, the price of gas right now is higher than the average. I just looked it up by about 10 cents than the average price during all of Biden's administration, including his COVID term.
Well, hopefully soon as I'm over.
Yeah, you're going to be thinking hopefully soon a lot.
Tom, is there any part of you that ever notices Tom, hold on. Is there any part of you, as you have conversations like this, that notices how hard it is for you to be intellectually consistent with your positions, that you can completely say without even flinching, no, it's totally reasonable to blame Joe Biden for gas prices in the first few days of his administration. Right. Totally made sense. But here we are 100 days into the second Trump administration, and you're just saying, well, we got to just give him more time. Is there any part of you that notices the intellectual inconsistency when you do stuff like that?
Yeah, but, like I say, Biden shut the pipeline down. And everybody.
Yeah, by the way, I've been looking that up since you saying it, and I'm finding even from right-wing sites that the analysis of that is that the reduction in gas would have been extremely marginal. Like it wouldn't have been. You're probably right. It would have gone down, but we're talking cents. We're not talking dollars.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Like I said, I don't know all that, but yeah.
Well, don't make a point if you don't feel like it's I didn't start countering and telling you you're wrong about it until I started looking it up. Don't make a point if you're just repeating a Fox News talking point. I hope Fox News is at least it. I hope you're not going to those I hope you're not listening to Newsmax and that garbage.
And again, as Jimmy said earlier, Biden's economic recovery. So it started off in a bad place because of COVID and because of the tax policies of the Trump era. But Biden's economic recovery outpaced most other nations in the COVID-19 recovery.
Bro,
and so
I just looked it up. Tom, why did Biden shut it down?
I'm not sure. Why'd you shut it down?
They literally decided, because independent analysts, so not liberal, not Democrat, concluded that it was no longer necessary. Basically, all the delays that had already happened, which that would have all been during the Trump administration, because it was 4 years, they had already built existing pipelines and upgraded enough to move the entire capacity of Canadian oil to U.S. markets without the new pipeline. So by the time Biden got in and went, all right, just cancel it, it was because they had already covered all of that. It was no longer necessary.
Well, I'm just going by my memory, but they were kind of making it sound like it was an environmental thing. They didn't want the pipeline to break.
That is prior to, sir, that's prior to all that. That was the delays that they were happening because they were skipping out. And by the way, your boy Trump in 2016, despite promising to, did not reverse the regulations that would have allowed them to bypass all of that. It's weird to me if you are saying that you don't. Did you say you do think it matters whether or not there's environmental impact? Do you care if there is? If it's also, do you care if it impacts the land of other people, indigenous tribes' land? Do you care about any of that?
Well, everything we do impacts environmental thing. I mean, when we get up and breathe, we're impacting environmental.
Yes.
It depends on what kind of microscopic level you want to
Tom,
look at.
and we're not obviously I wouldn't have brought it up if it was the equivalent of us breathing. We're not being reductionist. We're being intellectually honest. Reductionism is the farthest from intellectual honesty that you could go with. Tom,
but if a little bit of oil does break open and go in the ocean, then I wouldn't mind that at all, because oil comes out of the ocean ground just naturally. So
Tom,
if oil did go back.
I don't think that's what we're talking about. I think we're talking about all the lands we're literally destroying to install this massive thing, and whether or not it is worth the slight increase if it had gotten done in time. But again, even if you opened it later, by the time Biden shut it down, it was no longer necessary.
Oh, okay. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers or whatever, but I'll take your word on that or whatever. But I'll agree. I'm not going to disagree with you. So. But, we've been destroying.
I would rather you say like, hey man, I haven't heard that. And I'm recognizing that apparently I didn't know enough about it. So I'm going to start going, and I would love you to do it with everything, where you go, I think Donald Trump is a great president to become X. And then you take X and you put it into Google, and then you start looking all around, and not just at what the people you like say, not just start actually listening to both sides of the argument and see which one holds the most water. Because right now it sounds like you just kind of heard from probably not just like online, but also the communities you're in and involved with. There's no doubt if you were by the way, were you a union job?
I've been a union. Actually, I was a union steward probably 30 or 40 years ago. A little bit of both. Union,
and it was awesome, right?
It was okay. Either one.
Be real. Come on, man. Union jobs are way better than non-union. Would you have done the same job without union representation if you had the opportunity?
Like I said, I work for both, so I don't know.
I doubt it. I don't know though how, when you already see the policies that they are pushing forward now, after pretending to be more of a union president, they're now pushing toward more policies that are going to help more companies do more union busting and cause more people to not have representation and feel scared to unionize. When you were a part of what did you say your position was in your union?
I was a union steward, which was
shouldn't you, as a union steward, shouldn't your thought to union busting be like, let's go bust that dude's knees? I'm being a little hyperbolic, but you were a union steward and you're okay with an anti-union president like Donald Trump?
I mean, I don't know if he's anti-union. I mean, a lot of union people voted for Trump, so I don't know.
Yes,
I don't think he's 100% anti-union.
I think if you were intellectually honest, you and I would both be able to agree with why a lot of union white men voted for Trump.
Why is that?
Because it's mostly white men, mostly in jobs that keep women out. You and I are both aware that unions are largely staffed weirdly by, let's just say, more socially conservative men. I'm not necessarily saying politically conservative, but socially conservative men. And you could not sell on policy does not matter to a lot of them. They were never going to vote for a black Indian woman. You and I both know that. Be real.
I'm not sure. I don't look at it like that, but
you really think
honestly,
she deserved 8 million less votes? Was that what it was than Biden got? That's I don't know, man. I think you do know.
8 million than Biden? I mean, there's a lot of people shoving ballots in the mailboxes when Biden got voted in. So I don't.
Yeah, that's by the way,
there's no evidence of that, Tom. He had 60. Yeah. There's just no evidence that ever happened, Tom.
Trump's own investigatory teams did not come to those conclusions. The cyber ninjas came.
I wouldn't want it to be any different because the way it turned out was 100% better. The way it turned out.
Oh no, it did, sir. Sir, call me back. Call me back in a year. Call me back in a year. Right now, we are running through our untariffed supply. Call me back in a year when you have paid inexorbitant amounts for for like basic goods. The prices are about to blow up.
I'll tell you, Tom. You kind of say like, I don't know, maybe. I don't really know about that. You say that a lot. You seem to have a really cavalier approach to your personal politics where you have these strong positions, but then when someone gives you a factual reason why that position is wrong, you just go, oh, well, I don't know about that. Well, it's very striking to hear someone kind of be like, oh no, for sure. Well, ballots were getting stuffed into mailboxes. No, there's no evidence of that. They lost every single lawsuit. They lost every chance they had to prove that was happening. There's never been any evidence to substantiate that. You just go, oh, I don't know, maybe. No, you have to be able to say, oh, I guess I'm wrong. Oh, I guess that's a wrong thing that I think.
Right, but I don't, like I don't care about that anymore because I'm glad it happened that way. But I know they had people shoving ballots in the mail and they had it on video.
No, you don't know that. Shoving ballots in the mail is a meaningless phrase. There are places with mail-in ballots, so lots of people put their ballots in the mail. And you know what? I did mine emphatically. You might have thought I shoved it.
I'm one of them.
Like the word shove just means nothing. They have audited these over and over. All right. Have you heard of the cyber ninjas, Tom? Tom, have you heard of the cyber ninjas?
Cyber ninja, seems like I might have heard it. Yeah.
They are a MAGA, basically cyber team. You know that they are on Team MAGA, right?
Nope.
Okay, well they are. And they went, Arizona is one of the places, right, where Arizona is one of the places, fraud. Right, where they were like, that state got flipped with fraud. Are you aware of that?
I remember all that going on, yeah.
Okay, so cybersecurity firm, Cyber Ninjas, goes and actually does a bunch of legal stuff. It was kind of crazy at the time, and I remember thinking like, ooh, this looks like they're going to be able to fudge things. We won't even know if they're telling the truth. Well, guess what? Turns out they actually did run truthfully because they were able to get basically Arizona to give them the written counts, and do an audit. And they were there, the cyber ninjas, to prove the fraud. And let me tell you, Tom, they found the fraud. What was the result? What fraud did they find? Do you know?
Nope.
They changed a few dozen, not hundreds, not thousands, a few dozen votes got changed. Literally, we're talking less than 50. A few dozens were found to be fraudulent. Some of them need to be changed. Some of them need to be removed. The cyber ninjas, MAGA's cyber ninjas, what would you guess they found in that fraud? Do you think that fraud meant that Donald Trump got a few more votes or Joe Biden got a few more votes when they fixed it?
I'm going to say Joe Biden.
The votes were disproportionately fraudulent in Trump's favor. So when MAGA cyber ninjas basically were like, this is by how much it was wrong, it was a few dozen, a tiny margin that has never changed the election ever. And everybody acknowledges that a few things fall through the cracks. Sometimes it's by accident. Sometimes it's fraud every year, but it's never enough to change it. Their audit showed that fraud actually happened in the tiniest little margin in Trump's favor. And that if you were to correct the ballots and remove all the fraud, Biden would actually need to gain a few votes because the fraud was in Trump's favor, not Biden's. That's your guys. The cyber ninjas are MAGA. It is a cybersecurity firm that are MAGA. They went positive. In 2016, Donald Trump actually created, I think it was called a commission, created an investigatory commission from the government and said, go to California. Because even though I won all of the country, I think there are 5 million fraudulent votes there. And if you find those 5 million, we can actually prove that I won the popular vote. His people went to California. The investigation got shut down after a year because they could not find any fraud. So where is all of this fraud happening that you're saying, well, I saw it on a video, but not even the people on his side who are sent to investigate it can find these things?
Yeah. Well, like I said, it doesn't matter anymore, but yeah, I know what you're saying, but I remember.
Of course it matters whether or not you are listening to truth, whether or not you are following people who repeat these lies. It matters a lot.
Tom, just 5 minutes ago, you said with a certainty, everybody knows that there was fraud in the 2020 election. Everybody knows that. And then
I don't know
Jimmy just,
that, yeah.
What?
I said
What'd
everybody knows. I don't think I said everybody knows that, but
you did.
I don't remember.
You kind of you stated it like it was a matter of fact, like it was just of course there was ballots being stuffed into mailboxes. Why did you say that so confidently? What made you say that so confidently? What have you seen that made you so sure of that?
They changed the rules right before the election, and once you change the rules before the election, whether it happened or not, it made the perception that it was going to happen, and then that just changed. That made everybody think, whether it was a fair election or not, because they changed the rules. Because of COVID.
Wait, Tom, who changed the rules?
Something about that. I don't know. I can't remember all that one. But yeah,
no.
The rules.
Who specifically? Who changed the rules? Did the federal government change the rules, or did the states change the rules?
States, probably.
Right. So states are in charge. You can't, and if you're DeSantis, you can't be pressured by the Biden administration. States, quote unquote, change the rules. And now, what system did they use? Did they use a brand new novel system? Or did they use a system that was already in place in, I think, at least 5 states? I was in one of them already. That had already been audited time and time again in times past, and literally adopted a proven system that other states had already been using for a long period of time. Was it that, or a brand new novel system?
Well, let's put it this way. My neighbor put
No. Answer my question. Don't try and spin it. Was it a new novel system, or was it a state system that had already been proven?
Well, mail-in ballots have been around for a while, so
right.
I'll say that.
It was. I was in Colorado. Colorado didn't have to change any rules because they've already been using it. The mail-in ballot system has already existed. The reason why it might change the election more toward Democrats is because people are more willing. They are less lazy, frankly, to vote. And when more people vote, the Democrats tend to win. The higher the voter turnout, the better. So you can say it felt unfair because more people got to vote, more people actually got to, and that favors the Democrats. But we should have that be the benefit. That should be in this country. There should already be a type of mandatory voting. Everybody should have the opportunity to vote, and it should be made easy. But Republicans are never going to do that because then they are going to lose every time. It wasn't.
Yeah, there's a reason why Republicans are always trying to make voting harder. It's because they know that when more people vote, they tend to lose.
And you could still vote in person in almost every state. You could still vote by drop-off ballot and absentee ballot. In fact, almost every state, it wasn't even a changing of the rules. It was you could still call it that, but it was basically expanding their absentee system. That this thing that we already have in place for absentee, now everybody can do because everybody is justified in saying they are afraid of for a health reason, which is one of the reasons you could absentee ballot before.
What I find fascinating, Tom, is
my neighbor applied for a ballot in 2020 and got 5 ballots. In 2024, she put absentee ballot and she got 1 ballot. So you can't tell me that there's so many more ballots in 2020 that were just handed out for no reason or whatever reason. I don't know why she got 5 ballots, but she told me I got 5.
How many ballots?
And did your neighbor fill out 5 ballots and turn them all in?
I hope not, but I hope she only did 1. But this year,
and did your neighbor? And did your neighbor vote for Donald Trump?
Absolutely, yeah, she did.
Yeah.
So Tom, you're telling me that the Biden administration sent your Trump's? Hold on, Tom. Shut up. Tom, hold on, Tom. You're telling me that the Biden administration, to cheat in an election, sent your neighbor, who's a Trump supporter, 5 ballots, hoping that she would fill out 5 ballots for Joe Biden? That's your proof that there was cheating in the 2020 election?
I'm just saying the election was flawed because people were getting 5 ballots.
No,
people shouldn't be getting 5 ballots.
Tom,
get 1 ballot.
Tom, answer my question.
But
You're saying that your evidence that there was fraud in the 2020 election is that the Biden administration sent your Trump-supporting neighbor 5 ballots, hoping that she would fill out 5 ballots for Joe Biden. That's the logic that you're working with? Yes or no?
I'm just saying the whole flawed.
No, that is. It's a yes. That's what we're saying.
But here's the funniest part is, Tom, you fundamentally don't understand the mail-in system. Let's say they send me 100 ballots. Can I return 100 ballots safely?
Well, I mean, in 2020 might have been able to. But
no. Tom, you've never been able to.
The answer is no, Tom.
A ballot
the answer is no.
A ballot comes to you if your friend had returned those 5 ballots. The reason I know she didn't return 5 is that she wasn't arrested. That would have been voter fraud, because while the ballot on the inside of the envelope is separated eventually and kept separate and anonymous, the first thing they do is check the sleeve. The sleeve on the envelope is registered to the individual. The state knows every person who cast a ballot, but not for whom that ballot was cast. By the way, this is the same system that works just as well, especially with, I think it's funny that people think like, well, if we just checked IDs at the, even though you do this when you register, they've proven there's no fraud with that shit. And even if you wanted to commit fraud, you're talking about common people who would be checking the IDs as though they can spot a fucking fake ID. If you're that incentivized, the whole thing is dumb. You can't cast multiple votes. It is tracked how many votes a person gives.
It's the most impossibly stupid concept to commit voter fraud I've ever heard, Tom. Yeah. Like, first of all, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say your neighbor is lying to you. That didn't actually happen. And second of all, if it did, Tom, why would that be their plan to cheat in the election? Work it out in your brain. Why would the Biden administration send 5 ballots to your Trump-supporting neighbor? Why would that be the plan?
I'm just saying the whole system was flawed in 2020 because of COVID and all the other bull. You know,
it wasn't though. It wasn't.
I'm not saying that Trump didn't get illegal votes either. I'm just saying it was.
Do you trust the Trump administration?
I think they did a good job of counting votes this time. You know.
No, do you trust the administration? The Trump administration.
If you win,
do you?
If you win, oh yeah.
Do you trust the Trump administration to tell the truth?
100% no, of course not. But I trust them more than what I trust. You know, I mean, everybody's biased one way or the other.
Okay, so the Trump administration in 2024, not Trump himself, said it was the absolute safest and most secure election of all time.
This past election? Or in 2020?
No, the 2020 election. The 2020 election. Also, Tom, I want to ask you a question about this.
The 2020 election, correct. Yeah. The Trump administration said that the 2020 election was the most secure of all time. The people who are, remember, Bill Barr, the guy who wrote the obsequious thing to make sure that he didn't get impeached, the obsequious summary of the FBI report. He is the guy who then came out and said, we went and investigated and all of his claims were bullshit. Republican courts, they got laughed out of court after court after court by Republican appointed judges. I do not have, for all of the things that we've been talking about today, I haven't had to cite any Biden people, any leftist people. I can, with only Republican experts and officials, prove to you that all of your positions are wrong.
And they might be, like I said, I don't care about that election because I'm glad it happened that way. I'm glad Trump had a chance to come back and
Tom, you do this. Tom, you do this again and again and again, where we provide like evidence of why a position that you stated is wrong, and you just kind of go, oh well, I guess whatever, no big deal. But can't you just go, oh geez, I guess this thing that I've thought for years I was wrong about, and maybe that means something about my entire worldview. I want to go back to a question that I'm curious about, because you said just the fact that they changed the rules before the 2020 election made it seem suspicious. We pointed out that the states were just changing, their mail-in voter rules to a system that had already been proven in other states, that they weren't just changing the way elections fundamentally work or anything like that. But this idea of like them doing anything at all that has the appearance of impropriety made you raise a flag. Does it raise any flags to you at all that every single time Donald Trump has been asked on the campaign trail if he would accept the results of an election that he lost, he's always said no? That like in 2016, when he was running against Hillary Clinton, he was asked on the debate stage, if you lose this election, will you concede that you've lost? And he said, no. Said, no, if I lose, then I'm going to say that she cheated. And then when he lost in 2020, he did just that. Doesn't it raise, like, if a team was going to go
he said it in 2016 too, even after he won, that he also won the popular vote.
Yeah, he still said that there was fraud. Now, but hold on. Would if there was a team that was playing in the Super Bowl and before the game happened, their coach said, if we lose, I'm going to say that the other team cheated. Just so everyone knows, if we lose the game, I'm going to claim that the other team cheated. And then he lost and went and did a press conference and said they cheated. Would you take that guy seriously? Or would you say, well, he said he was going to do this and he said he was going to do this before the game was even played, so why would I take this guy seriously? Why does that not raise a red flag to you that this man tells you, I'm going to claim fraud no matter what?
Well, like I said, once you change the rules right before, it just changes everybody's perception.
Tom, why does it not change your perception that the guy who's claiming fraud said, I'm going to claim fraud no matter what? Before any votes are cast, before anything's happened, he's already on the campaign trail saying, whatever the result of this election is, I'm going to say they cheated. I'm already saying they cheated before the elections even happened. Why does that not make you change your perception of it?
Well, if you're talking about 2020, I kind of agree that it was just a messed up election to me. So that's just my perception.
No, it wasn't a messed up election. I'm saying your perception of the election is that it's weird because the states changed the rules. I'm asking you, why don't you think it's weird that Donald Trump said, I'm going to claim fraud no matter what? Why is that not weird to you?
Because when the states changed the rules, that gave him the right.
He was saying this before they did that.
Right, way before.
He's been saying this. He's been saying this since 2015. He's been saying, if I ever lose an election, I will just say that the other side cheated. And even when he won in 2016, he said that she cheated. So he's always said this. I'm saying if the guy who always says everyone's cheating, even when there's not even an election happening, and he's just saying, just so you know, they're going to cheat. And he said it in every election he's been a part of. Why does that not make you think, oh, maybe I shouldn't trust that guy because he just says everyone's cheating no matter what happens?
It must be a political move because Hillary Clinton said he cheated for 4 years after he won. So that must be a political move that all politicians.
That's not even true. That's not even true.
She didn't. She said she won the popular vote, which she did.
Right. Who won the popular vote? She never said that. She acknowledged. She also conceded the election, something he never did. She called and conceded. So did Kamala Harris, something he never did to Joe Biden. Literally ever. He didn't ever concede in the 4 years. But Tom, here's the thing I'm going to say to you about your change the rules point, because you keep making it. First of all, saying they changed the rules, not quite accurate. They changed the process of how you vote, but it was still by the Electoral College, you will win. If you win the Electoral College, you become the president. Those are the fundamental rules. The fundamental rules didn't change. But let me give you this. It was different, and different is scary. And you're quite right. If you make a big change, big changes can be more wrought for fraud. So then what is the answer? Obviously, we had to do something because COVID was, and we didn't have vaccines yet. They were starting to get to just rich people. Like I think Donald Trump probably had his by then, but we didn't have vaccines yet. So what do? Well, you have to do something. You have to change the process. So you go, geez, this is scary. What if somebody exploits it? All right, let's investigate it. And every investigation came back that it was good, that the election by the cyber ninjas, again, Arizona, turns out more fraud happened for Trump. But again, we're only talking about a few, so nobody would I'm not freaking out about that little bit of fraud. Only a few, more for them. His own administration, Bill Barr, and I'm trying to remember the name of the guy, but there's a dude who was like in charge of that, goes out and says it is actually the safest, freest, most fair election that in the history of the country. I'm fine with you going, that's such a big change. What if somebody were to take advantage of the chaos when it wasn't that chaotic? They knew how the process should work. But what if someone did take advantage of the chaos of change and take advantage of it fraudulently? So we investigate it. Obviously, the Democrats, their investigations all came up with nothing. But it's not like only the Democrats investigated. The Republicans investigated. Trump's people, the people he appointed, the people who got him out of impeachment, those people investigated. Kellyanne Conway, the absolute, when Trump farts, she just sniffs it up, loves it, and then defends it to the country. There's no person who's ever been more like hopelessly loyal to the point of being willing to prostrate herself to any end as much as Kellyanne Conway was to Trump. And even Kellyanne Conway, because she was also in touch with people like Bill Barr, was close with all these other Republican people who were willing to tell her straight. Even she came out and said it was a mistake for Donald Trump to both say that there was all that fraud and to keep talking about it. Move on. She wouldn't directly say like he's lying, but she basically said he's lying with that. This is the woman who said alternative facts, remember? So I agree with you that it's fine to be afraid of an election with such a massive change. And then you should do the things to correct for it. And we did. And the Republican side, the only person who didn't agree was Trump. Trump, who from the Roy Cohn playbook knows and has bragged time and time again, no matter what, you never admit defeat. We know this is a part of his personality, and yet there are a cult of people willing to also humiliate and prostrate themselves, defending a man who would not spit on them if it would improve their situation, but would if it would degrade them. That's the man. He does not care about you. He doesn't care about Americans. He cares about billionaires. We know this because recently when the stock market tanked and then there was that little bump back, he had billionaires in the White House with him, and he was bragging about all the money they made because essentially they got a warning. He was going to put out a message about the tariffs that were going to increase the stock market, and between that increase and then the next dip, they were able to move their investments and make billions of dollars, just like Marjorie Taylor Greene seems to have also done recently because they have insider knowledge. These are insider trading people, and he is the fucking ringleader.
Like Nancy Pelosi, remember?
Exactly. Yes, like corrupt Nancy Pelosi. Yes. Absolutely.
Okay,
yes, of course I do.
Yes.
Nancy Pelosi is a corrupt politician.
Tom, here's what you got to understand about us is we're not like you. Like we actually are willing to call a spade a spade. When a person is doing something wrong, we're willing to just call it out. We don't go, oh, well, I don't really know about that. You go kind of like Nancy Pelosi, and we go, oh, I don't really know about that. I mean, who knows? I don't really know about that. I don't know. I mean, well, maybe. Who knows? That's you, Tom. What we do is we go, oh no, absolutely, Nancy. I don't really do. I don't really know
Nancy
about
that. Nancy Pelosi is a very corrupt politician.
I don't know. Who knows? Maybe. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows? All I know is that it's weird that Marjorie Taylor Greene made a bunch of money, but I don't know about anything else. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe. No, Tom. We're willing to. When Democrats do things that are unethical and immoral, we're willing to call it out. We don't just kind of go, I don't know about that. I don't know. I didn't see that. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm not well. A lot of stuff. I don't want to talk about stuff I don't know. Pretty much everything.
But you do. But you do. You do share opinions about stuff you don't know about. Then when we tell you why you're wrong, you go, oh, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. So it's like, why'd you say anything? If you don't know about it, why'd you say anything? You're the one who brings these topics up, and then when we disprove your stance, you go, oh, I don't really know about that. I don't know about that. Why'd you talk about it then? Why'd you bring it up? Why'd you bring it up if you don't know about it?
Well, what happened in 2020? I know what happened to Bill Clinton, and I know all those things. But, yeah.
What happened in 2020 that you know about? What happened?
Just changing the rules of the election and making it look like it was
changing the process, not the rules.
Not the rules, changing the process because there was a global pandemic going on.
We desperately need to change the rules of the elections, by the way. Right now, the rules of the elections are currently corrupt as fuck. We need to make voting easy. Every citizen should be given a ballot. There should be a mandate on every state to deliver a ballot to every citizen, and every citizen should have an easy way to return it. And then we should elect by popular vote, because everything they said the Electoral College will prevent is literally what happened. Excuse me. with Donald Trump. A pop figure, a drama reality TV figure was able to become president by being an obnoxious piece of shit. We absolutely should switch to the popular vote.
I'd rather have a non-politician be the president. I don't think they should allow a politician to be a president.
I'd rather have a McDonald's worker fly my plane.
Well, I don't know about that. But,
yeah, no shit. Politician means...
I don't know about that. Point where the president, like Biden, how many millions of dollars did he get from...
Yes, I would rather have a non-corrupt politician as a president than a corrupt politician. I also think Joe Biden should not have ever been president. I think we had an opportunity to elect Bernie Sanders, who, while not perfect, is probably the least corrupt person on Capitol Hill. Well, AOC's got, and there's a few other people now giving him some, as far as money they're actually taking, some people giving him run for his money. But we had an opportunity for a much less corrupt person and a person who cares way more about you individually, Tom, and your position, and actually has kind of contempt for the many billionaires who have taken what pool of money exists. And again, money isn't money, it's security. There's some amount of security out there, and a few people have most of it, and we all share the rest. And he goes and recognizes, that sounds pretty fucking immoral to me, and wants to actually move that money back from them to you, to give you security back from these people who have stolen it from you and built their own, exploiting your own labor. So,
the government steals from us a lot, and then
not as much as billionaires do, buddy. Literally, when you say the government is stealing from you, it is mostly in the form of tax cuts that they give to the billionaires and raises on middle class. You're kind of right. They do facilitate that transfer of money, which has been happening for decades now. The income inequality has been skyrocketing, and the government has been helping. So I don't fully disagree with you on that. They steal on behalf of their billionaire buddies.
I don't like big corporations. Back in the old days, let's say 100 years ago, when somebody owned a factory, they kind of worked with the community to hire all the people from the community to, work in the factory. And now the big companies don't give a fuck about people, in the community. They give a fuck about
having higher profits year over year. So wait, you don't like big companies. Right. Which political party do you think is more kind and more beneficial for a big company?
Oh, boy. Microsoft, they like Democrats.
No, Bill Gates likes Democrats. If you think Microsoft likes Democrats, wasn't the Microsoft people, or were they the one who didn't show up to the inauguration? There are PR, there is PR, and then there is where the money actually goes. You want to say Microsoft people, big corporations love Republicans because they remove regulations. Are they going to kowtow to what they think is going to be more publicly edible? Sure, kind of sometimes, though right now a lot of them are taking some pretty big swings and bets to keep their company alive, like Meta, all coming to kiss the autocrat's ring so that he doesn't target them specifically, especially now. Obviously, Meta gave a couple of $1 million between the inauguration party and other things to Trump, and now they're expecting Trump to intervene on their behalf in the hearings that are happening right now, which he might do because he can be bought. The man is so corrupt, it's laughable. Anyway, we should move to another call. We've been doing this for an hour, Tom.
Yeah.
All right.
Wild.
I wanted to help as well, so there you go.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Tom.
Appreciate you. You're right. It was a favor. You helped us out, but I appreciate you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. All right. Where do you want to go, Jimmy? We got this new one that just popped up is interesting.
I'll let you pick. I'm munching on chips.
Now, I guess there's still I don't know how to read this yet. I'm new to reading this, so I don't know if I'm reading notes from a past episode or if I'm reading.
Okay, so the tiny notes in the bottom, those are past notes. If you see it like lightly grayed out, notes. But the ones that have a number before the name, not just above it, those ones are fully screened and ready to go in the host queue area.
Okay. Well, then I would go with Will here.
Yeah, let's do Will.
So, all right.
Poor phrasing, especially considering the topic, but let's do Will.
Yeah.
Hey, how you guys doing?
What's up, Will? Thanks for holding for us.
You are on the line with Jimmy and Austin.
No problem.
Interested in this topic? Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I'm just interested in this topic. I'm interested to hear what you want to talk about.
Well, I wanted to talk about the ethics of, I guess, consuming online pornography specifically. It's not really about pornography in general because, I don't think that there's really an issue at hand just with looking at, naked people, but it's with the production of certain types of pornography. And I started thinking about this more and more with the whole Andrew Tate stuff that was in the news a couple of years ago. I don't know how close you guys followed that, but I'll just kind of cut through the stories. I think in general it's unethical to consume a luxury product that was produced unethically, and obviously, you wouldn't buy shoes that were produced. Actually, the guy in the previous call was talking about slave labor and stuff like that. You wouldn't want to produce something that was produced unethically. Pardon, you wouldn't want to consume something that was produced unethically.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess you're not a socialist, right?
I'm not a socialist, but I'm sympathetic to some socialist ideals.
You're talking to one. So when you say you would never consume something that was produced unethically, I'm sitting here going like, oh, you mean like everything?
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say I would never. That's why I said like a luxury good is something that is worse, in my opinion.
You're using,
if you're surrounded.
You're using the internet and electricity right now, and American internet and electricity all has super unethical environmental sources. But this doesn't mean that things are equal. So I'm not saying, therefore, all porn is ethical. Definitely, do not mistake me for that, saying that. But I am just telling you on the pure point of like, I would never use something that was produced by slave labor. This phone call on both ends of ours probably is not completed without what you are referring to as slave labor.
I take your point. I think that, for instance, you could buy, if you're buying jewelry, that's a luxury item. No one needs jewelry necessarily. But you could compare different companies and you could say to yourself, well, these jewels were grown in a lab, manufactured in Switzerland or whatever. Now, as a socialist, you would, of course, identify a lot of unethical elements to that. But it would be different than this other company, which is providing you jewelry that's made with blood diamonds, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
There are degrees,
sure,
like you mentioned.
Right.
And I think that with pornography, one of the biggest problems...
I wouldn't buy diamonds. Diamonds are stupid. It's one of the dumbest things we spend so much money on.
I agree with you there, Jimmy.
Common rocks that we can literally synthesize.
Yeah.
Synthesize.
But anyway, sorry, keep going, Will. I want to hear your question.
Yeah, on pornography.
Yeah. Sure. Just kind of, I guess I'll cut through as much of it as I can. It comes down to consent. When you're a viewer or a consumer, you have no way to judge the consent of the actors. Anecdotally, you hear a lot of stories about the industry. A lot of the studies that take place kind of come from fairly biased or motivated organizations. It's hard to really cite that. But at its core, when you're consuming it, when you're viewing it, you can't judge the consent of the actors that are involved in porn. And while obviously some of them are going to be, willing and consenting and being compensated in as ethical a manner as possible, it's also, of course, the case that some of them aren't. But you don't have a way to know that. Like with Martha Stewart, when she was, kind of exposed with all of the unethical practices behind the production of her clothing line or whatever it was, that's something that you can verify. You can go on the ground and you can investigate the sweatshop and you can say, this sweatshop is particularly bad.
So
and you can get that.
For the sake of brevity here, or just to kind of cue it down. So you are wanting us to omit like a company like Cheeks, which is literally like an ethical porn website. You want us to so we're not talking about that where they are all like, that's all on the very up and up. We're talking about not just like a person might regret having done porn, because regret and consent are separate categories, even though they can still be very, very sad. But we're omitting that. We're omitting independent creators on OnlyFans, right? We're omitting a person choosing to put the stuff up, and to the best of our ability, we can actually see online that they are saying that they are consenting. Because otherwise, if we're going with the well, what if there's some thing here, and here? If I go to McDonald's, I can't be sure there isn't a person with a gun to them. So you're saying on anything that it's too ripe for
It doesn't even have to be a person with a gun, too. I was literally going to say the same thing, that like there are people working at fast food jobs who don't want to be there, but who like have to be there. There are people. I've worked plenty of jobs in my life that I would rather have been anywhere else, but I'm forced by capitalism to be there to pay my rent. So but I do want to say I find this line of questioning interesting. I live in Los Angeles, and one weird thing about living in LA is like you wind up becoming friends with a lot of porn stars. I know a lot of people who live here who are in the adult film industry, and it's something that I never had before I moved here. And now like a good amount of my friends are sex workers who work in the adult film industry. Never thought that would be part of my social circle, but they actually have a very similar job to what I do. I'm an actor and a writer in the regular film industry, I guess, the non-sex film industry. And our jobs are very similar in that there is exploitation and coercion and manipulation that exists in both of our jobs. There are people in positions of power who abuse those positions of power. So a lot of the ethical and moral hangups that people have about pornography exist, like the things that get brought up in some of these studies. And you did mention this, that a lot of these studies are obviously being done by people with a very specific bias and a very specific kind of socio-political agenda that's usually like, there's a lot of times it's a religious angle of just the sort of core foundational belief that pornography and masturbation is sinful, that it's, fornication outside of marriage is sinful. So there's sort of this agenda to try to paint the concept of sex work in general as inherently bad and figure out data that matches your already predetermined conclusion. And it's not that that data doesn't exist. It's not that you're not going to be able to find that data. It's just this question of like, is it more prevalent in sex work and in the adult entertainment industry than it is in any other industry? And the more that I think about this issue, the more, and with my friends that I talk to, the more I'm just kind of like, I'm not sure that it is. In fact, in many different ways, I can argue that my industry, the film industry, is sometimes worse for performers than their industry is. Like, my friends that are adult film stars seem to have a lot more autonomy over what they do at this point in their careers than I ever have. Like, they're able to kind of hand select who they perform with and which companies they like to perform with and which directors they like to work with. My friends that are women in that industry get to be producers and directors a lot more often than my friends that are women in Hollywood. And there just seems to be like I said, the abuses of power that exist with people who, we've seen like the studio system and the abuses that happen with people like Harvey Weinstein. And for years and years and years in Hollywood, there was sort of this quid pro quo system of abuse and coercion and manipulation. And I just don't, I'm not saying that you're not going to find horror stories of people who have worked in porn and walked out and said, XYZ really bad thing happened to me. I'm not saying that's not going to exist, but what I am saying is that exists in every level of entertainment, in dance and music, and it also just exists in every industry. Like, there are people who work at a fast food place who have been sexually assaulted by a manager. Like, there are people, this abuses of power, manipulation, coercion exists in literally every industry. And whenever this question comes up, I'm always curious, like, why do we zero in on sex work to have these conversations and not talk about it in a more broad way? I'm not saying that we shouldn't be having the conversation at all, because I do think that it's a worthy conversation to have. It does seem that I worry about us buying into kind of the puritanical Christian heteronormative stance on sex work. And
I think
sure.
maybe I'm wrong, but I just want to jump in with a little thing, Will, because it might be faster to clarify. I assume, Will, you're not talking as much though about people like Austin's friends. I assume you're talking about more of the stories of, okay. So I would say, honestly, I think the answer is simply this. The short answer is do your best and probably avoid websites that, one, allow people under the age of 21 to post. So any of them that are like making money off the like newly legal 18, 21 is probably good enough as far as like the development of your brain. A lot of people say 25 because they fundamentally don't even understand why that number is that number. 21, you have all of your adult faculties and the ability to consent. Your brain will go through a refinement period to make your brain more efficient in that remaining 4 years. There's a little bit of additional structures in like the next 2 years, but as far as everything you need, and also people are completely different. Weirdly, I think that I was, I don't see a huge difference in my ability to evaluate the situation I'm in from when I was 16 years old on. That is not me advocating for anybody lowering any consent ages to 16. 18 for an age of sexual consent tends to be based on an average. There are going to be people for whom that abuses, but for the most part, on an average system, that's going to be sufficient. But for consenting to doing pornography, you should be a little bit older, mostly to cover and make that margin of people who won't have enough faculties to consent higher, or rather lower, make that margin lower. Sorry, that's getting very, very technical about the human brain. So anyone that allows creators under 21, or if you are on a website of independent creators, try to only consume creators who are at least 21, because I am aware that OnlyFans, there's some ethical issues there, because not only can you do it at 18, they it seems like trying to make it appealing for 18-year-olds to jump in right away. And that's probably going to create the biggest sort of group of people who will regret doing it later. The odds of regretting it if you do it after 21 go down a lot. So then, or how much you regret it as well. Regarding, that's the age thing. Then websites which allow unverified amateurs, I would also recommend people. So in other words, like a YouTube type of pornography site where it's like, oh yeah, there are verified people, but there's a lot of people on here that's like, who knows where this stuff comes from. You should avoid that too.
That's what I wanted to get at.
Yeah, I would avoid that too.
Really get at.
And there are more and more websites. I will say that I see most of my porn on Reddit. So I don't know what to, but I just don't consume it like I used to. But I believe, if I remember right, years ago, after a lot of public outcry because they were doing it wrong, that I believe like Pornhub, I think, closed up a lot of that stuff. I think they got rid of all of the unverified amateurs. They added an additional process to become a verified amateur. But when it comes to something like the Andrew Tate thing, I think it is literally like, hey man, do the best you can. But that's a situation like the guy being held at gunpoint at McDonald's. I can't know for sure there isn't something crazy happening behind those things, and those are the extenuating circumstances. So if you are putting effort into it at all, you're participating in a culture that will reduce those inequities more and more over time, and you're probably okay.
Well, the biggest issue I had, or I guess if I can kind of pull back a little bit, the types of pornography online that you're talking about as being the most problematic is the largest type of pornography that is consumed now.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Like the studio stuff, like I was kind of alluding to, that you can investigate the studios, you can figure that out. But some dude who uploads something to Pornhub or whatever, and it says, I don't know, but it's him and his wife allegedly. You don't know what's going on there. You have no way of knowing, and that's the most commonly consumed type of porn now in the United States. Anyways, I wish I had the study on hand, but that
unverified amateurs. I will tell you. If it does look like a couple, to me, like it's a married couple or whatever, and they have a social media profile, you can go check, and all that stuff that isn't the stuff I would be quite as concerned about as I am the freshly 18, blah, blah, blah. But the absolute reality is, and it's something that kind of like disgusts me and makes me feel weird, even though I never purposefully ever did anything, but almost everybody who used pornography websites before, let's say 2015, especially things like Pornhub and the like, because of the abundance of unverified stuff, you have probably seen people who weren't legal or were, hopefully you didn't click those videos, but at least in thumbnails, or who, because this was the big exposed thing that happened. I believe it was to Pornhub, but it might've been a different one, that they were like, for years, the most popular videos were this one, this one, and this one. And in the case of this one, that was a 17-year-old. In the case of this one, that was a rape. Like these were like really high up on those amateur lists and stuff.
Right.
So obviously those are the types of things that you want to be more cognizant of. And again, if you'll just participate in the culture and spread the culture of trying to avoid those things, I don't know how to fix those other issues. and it's not really my wheelhouse except to give my opinion on it. Obviously, those are a thing. I'm glad we talk about that stuff more. And if you want to consume porn the most ethically, find an independent creator who's not attached to any kind of label and buy their stuff directly. But obviously, most people don't want to spend money on porn when there's such an abundant amount for free.
Let me ask you this. In the recent, over the last year, a lot of primarily Republican legislatures, Florida as well, have put out a lot of laws that kind of crack down on sites like Pornhub and stuff.
But none of that is
like
for those
Florida
reasons.
now.
They're trying to stop the consumption of pornography from underage people, as though underage people don't know how to use VPNs better than anybody. All they did was cause the sales of VPNs to skyrocket and me to get annoyed every time I'm on Reddit and want to open. I've got a weird label on a GIF I want to see.
Well, I was going to ask, do you think that is a net benefit in order to try to keep those sites out of, the hands of people who can't show a driver's license or all that kind of stuff? You don't think so?
There's too many porn sites that are, you can literally, I'm in Texas right now. I can literally pull up porn sites that are like, we're not centered out of America. Fuck you. We don't care. Is Texas going to tell our Swedish company to do shit? Like, they can't do fucking shit. And then again, you're talking about young people. I think about the lengths I went to consume. I didn't have access really to online porn, maybe every now and then when I was a kid. The amount of the lengths I went to consume some sort of sexual material, we're talking like hiding magazines in the woods and shit. You think kids aren't going to figure out how to use a VPN when like back in the day we were creating stashes in the woods? Bro, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I think that this attempt to try to
love, right?
This attempt to try to protect kids from stuff that could be damaging or psychologically or harmful to them it's just something that they've been trying to do my entire life, and I've never seen an attempt be successful. And I also think that what winds up happening weirdly, and again, because I don't want to minimize some of the stuff that we're talking about here, that there is, that if you go searching for evidence of bad stuff out there in the world of adult entertainment, you're going to find evidence of people who have been hurt, and you're going to find evidence of it. But so I'm not trying to minimize it, but I do think that what happens anytime that we lean into this attempt to how do we protect kids from this stuff, we wind up opening up this whole other can of worms where you create this culture, this like repressive, sex negative culture of like fear and shame around sex that leads to more sexual violence. I think that a lot of sexual violence is born out of regressive and repressive concepts around sex. So I was raised in a state that was very all about, like abstinence and trying to preach just staying away from it. Don't look at that stuff. Don't masturbate. Don't have sex. Don't do anything like that. And what it creates is really unhealthy psychological attachments to stuff like porn and stuff like it creates higher levels of sexual violence, and and so I think that, I don't know, it's like I don't really, it is a complex situation because I don't really know what the solution is. I've had people in my family ask me for their kids. They go, what am I supposed to do with my kids and the internet? And I'm like, I genuinely don't know. I'm so glad I don't have kids because I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know how. Hard. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. Like, your kids are better at the internet than you are. And I don't know how you're supposed to outmaneuver them and protect them from what's out there. I think we're just going to have to almost accept that we're in a new paradigm where kids are being exposed to different kinds of things at earlier ages. But also it's like, I don't know, like I think about kids programming and the stuff that kids watch on YouTube and like how different it is from the programming that I grew up on. I grew up on network programming that had like writers' rooms and people who were actually trying to create thoughtful, interesting content and interesting TV shows. And now I watch what kids are watching on YouTube, and it's like parents who are just exploiting their child and putting them in front of the camera and doing this like mindless drivel. And I'm like, I think that this is just as bad for kids as anything else on the internet. It's just sort of like mind melting soup, idiocracy garbage. So I don't know.
When I was in high school, every kid in my school knew how to bypass the school's firewall to see homestarrunner.com. They'll figure out how to get to porn. Do you know what the Opera browser is, by the way? Have you ever heard of Opera for a browser?
No.
Oh, it's like one of the most popular, like the ones that aren't the big ones, like Edge or anyway. Opera now literally has a built-in VPN and for free. So it's kind of like these laws are meaningless because what is the average age that a kid knows how to install an app on an iPad? 7? Certainly years before they but want to access porn. So just back to the original question. I think it's a net nothing. It's just an annoyance for adults.
Yeah, all it winds up doing, I feel like when we try to figure out how to put the toothpaste back in the tube of what the kids are seeing online, is it just, I think, adds to the culture of, oh no, sex is bad, oh no, oh no. And maybe the answer is that we just need to just be more realistic about the fact that like kids are human beings who have their own experience with sexuality at early ages. I know I did. And I'm not, it sounds so weird to say that as an adult because it feels like the carte blanche position you're supposed to have as an adult is like, kids aren't sexual beings. Right. And I don't think of kids sexually because that's not, I'm not, like that's
despite the mustache, I know for a fact he only likes adults.
But I know that when I was a kid, I was just on my friend who's an adult performer, and she has this podcast called First Thirst. And the question of the podcast is, what was your first like sexual awakening? And my answer on the show was like, I was a horny little kid. As early as like from kindergarten, I was thinking about like kissing people, and like I'd watch people kiss in movies and be like, I want to do that. And so I think that like denying the fact that children are having their own experience with the way that their body comes hardwired has weird psychological effects, because as soon as you're aware of that and you communicate that to an adult and they tell you, don't do that, don't talk about that, that's bad. And then you have to grow up your whole life going like, okay, so this is something I have to hide. This is something I have to like pretend like is not part of me because the adults in my life are telling me I'm bad because of it. And then it's not until you're an adult that you kind of go, why did all the adults make me feel bad about that if everyone's doing it? And it's this weird like thing that we have that you get older and you're like, so we were all doing that? And the adults were telling us that I was bad for doing it. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know that we fix. I know that we're trying to protect people from experiencing violence and that violence is real. But I also think that we create this psychological problem around the concept of human sexuality at such a young age when we're so hyper fixated on like, how do we prevent the kids from becoming sexualized psychologically too early? And it's just like, I don't know that you can. Yeah. I think that human beings just sort of get horny at young ages too.
Dude, wait, so my friend Jesse in chat just wrote, I was obsessed from seeing boobs from like 10 years old. Okay, I bet you it was earlier than that, Jesse, but I understand the obsession there. I was thinking about what you're saying. I have this canon event in my head where I can remember being in a kitchen in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and realizing, not like having the experience I would have now by that excitement, but realizing as a kid, I was like, oh, I don't remember. I wouldn't have known the word cleavage at that point, but I was like, if I look at cleavage, I get a boner. Like I remember being like so young, realizing that cleavage gives me a boner. We're talking super young.
I was on this podcast, I was talking about how weird, like the people that I was attracted to. I was like really into Bridget Wilson from from Billy Madison, like Veronica Vaughn, and she's in Mortal Kombat. She plays Sonya, and it's like that was like a 30-year-old woman that me at like 8 was like, I want her. And it's like, what is that? What am I doing at that age, being attracted to a woman named Bridget? And yeah. I, like
12-year-old me thought I had a shot with Beyonce.
And I
Yeah, go ahead, Will.
Sorry, Will.
No, that's okay. I feel like it's kind of a different category, but I was going to ask a question that might kind of.
Yeah, we just got to go quick because I'm realizing how late it is. So go ahead.
Yep. Do you feel that do you feel that it's a violation of a person to have deepfake porn or AI porn created of them?
I'm actually, okay. I'm opposed to non-pornographic AI represent. I think that you should, even Donald Trump, and I laugh at the ones we're making. But there was a kind of like our last guy, Tom, tried to be like, oh, Nancy Pelosi. He was like, yeah, there was a person who's a really dumb but atheist conservative YouTuber who tried to like call me or see if I was consistent on his unethical use of AI to represent people from this channel. God, he's so shallow minded. Anyway, sorry. He's just crazy. And he was like,
Well,
so even
I
if
don't
it's
know about any of
Donald
that.
Trump, and I was like, yes, I think that ultimately your image and voice, you should have autonomy over the extension of those things. So something that's like very clearly like drawn art or cartoon art, fine. But things that are put out there as such an accurate representation that you'll actually fuck with people's memories. Like if you are doing like wouldn't it be funny if we heard what it was like for Donald Trump to say such and such, and it's in such an accurate way that even if you are declaring like I made this with AI, that you can fuck with a person's memory and be like, I feel like I'm remembering a time Donald Trump said, put your cum cum in my tum tum. Put that cum cum in my tum tum. My imitation is not so isn't accurate enough. Yeah, it's now that's
it's in my memory now.
Yeah. I do think that you should have autonomy over your image and your with parody being allowed, but clear.
That's what this
now,
that's partially
that kind of illustrates that, sorry.
Oh, I was just saying that's partially what the Screen Actors Guild was. Go ahead, Will.
I'm sorry, there's a little bit of a delay on my end. No, I was just going to say, do you think that kind of points to the notion that there might be sort of a different category, when we're talking about name, image, and likeness, pornographic representations of stuff, where a person is in some, you talk about consent and you talk about regret being very different things, which of course I totally agree. But in the same sense that you can sell, in the moment, you can make the decision to sell your image and then you can regret having done it. Do you think that there's something that's being kind of pointed to where in the future, after you've come to regret having sold the image, other people are then able to consume that as a product in a way that might affect you? Or do you think that does not affect you?
Yeah. Porn robots. There's going to be like porn AI is, as much as we're thinking of all the other AIs, porn AI is going to be what the biggest thing is out of it. Cause that's what every industry, not every, but so many industries, it's like, oh, the internet, it's great for all these things, but the internet is mostly porn. So it's, there's going to be lots of stuff like that.
And again, that's what I was saying in my initial response is like when we hyperfixate on the implications in the sex work industry, I don't know why we're hyperfixating, because this exact problem is going to exist in so many different ways in so many different industries. And it is a problem across the board. And what I was saying is this is partially what the Screen Actors Guild was striking about is we're like, hey, our industry's over if they just start making AI movies and they start taking actors' faces and likenesses and making AI renderings of them that sound like them and writing AI scripts based on the works of human writers. Like we're cooked, and we can still say, well, there's going to be ethical people who won't want that. But we also know that we live in an idiocracy full of people who like increasingly dumber and dumber things. So there is going to be a market for that. And I just don't know. I don't know how to stem the tide of it, but I also don't know why. Yeah, and I don't know why we should focus so heavily on just sex work, because it seems like a little bit of a puritanical thing, because I'm like, you're not wrong. This problem's going to exist, but it's going to exist across the board, and it's going to be an ethical problem across the board that's going to harm people in lots of different ways in lots of different industries.
Arguably, AI porn will attack non-porn stars much more. I mean, don't get me wrong, porn stars may lose jobs to it, but like, think about it. A lot of us think of it in such local things, but think about it as a foreign weapon. If you wanted to like really fuck up somebody, if you could mass distribute porn that people cannot tell the difference, cannot be sure that it isn't real of anybody, and obviously it's going to be more women than men, but you can change the opinions. You can fuck with people. Like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez already has deepfakes like distributed of her, but they're getting more and more and more accurate. And so will they try to use that to be like, yo, are you really going to vote for a woman that you saw this video of this thing happening to her? It's going to be used as a foreign tool, a foreign weapon as well. And so even if we said as Americans, we're not going to do this to each other, retaliatory economic a weapon from, any assholes who have access to massive AI. Obviously, we're going to be thinking about what China would be making and distributing here. That kind of stuff's going to suck too. Not just amongst porn, but in general, AI fake stuff. The future's bleak, just for the record. If anybody thinks like I don't know, people, do you come to this channel to hear me give you hope? Because no, it's all, we may have already lost. We're going to lose. Oh, yeah. I think we lost.
I was just watching a Hank Green video about how even real things look fake now. And at the end of the video, he was just kind of like, his conclusion is, he was like, I have no idea how we're going to be able to tell what's real in 5 years. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's like, like there was this bit, it was like that test rocket that they did like a 3D drone footage of it as it came down and it crashed. It was trying to land, and when it dropped about maybe 200 feet from the Earth's surface and landed and blew up. And everyone on the video was like, oh, this is obviously AI. This is fake. But it was real. It was a real video. And he was just kind of like, yeah, I get it. Like, the video does look weirdly fake. And now it's there's this line between, and it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. And it really is like you said, it's bleak to look into the future and go, how are we going to tell what anything is if the internet is like at least half fake AI videos that look real, at least half,
the stuff is going to get funded on the back of things that we think we want, because it's already happening. Instagram filters are the basis for a lot of the, like, just modifying faces and stuff. That's the stuff, the foundation that's going to be, because think about, like, if I still looked the way I looked a year ago, having now lost somewhere in the vicinity of closing in on 90 pounds now, I would be tempted by something that makes me look exactly like this, and it'd be like, oh man, for $2, I can just look like this instead of looking like something this would have eaten, my old self would have eaten. Like, that's the difference. And so that's the appeal. They're going to appeal to our vanity for things. And a lot of this stuff will be financed. Their development will be financed by our own vanity and the things that we want. And then it's going to be flipped and weaponized. In some cases. In other cases, it's going to be governments being like, well, won't it be so useful if when the Canadian election comes up, we can have a robocall going out that sounds like Kanye is calling all the Canadian citizens to tell them, hey, we've actually moved the election, so show up on this day instead of that day. And people don't know the difference. And it even looks like it's coming from the right place. Like, that kind of stuff will just be developed by other nations because it's powerful. And by the way, already happens. There was literally Joe Biden robocalls like that going out in the 2020 election.
Yeah, we're in for a fun ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be doing calls in my perfect imitation. This perfect impression.
It's pretty damn good. I didn't know that you had it so good.
Yeah, I could also.
It's pretty damn good.
I could do a Stewie. What if people believe that I'm the real Stewie?
That's pretty good too.
Thanks. There's a few. I can do a couple.
Do we want to talk to any of these other people?
I think we could speed round them. What do you think?
Sure.
And by the way, callers, that's not to do with you. I'm asking him if he thinks he and I are capable of speed rounding them, because that's big if. But let's find out. Yelena in Great Britain, I assume, is what GB stands for. Yelena, you are on the line with Jimmy and Austin.
Hi. Hello. Yes, Great Britain. I felt weird putting UK. I don't know why.
That's all right. But we are trying to go a little bit fast here. So if you will give us your quick question. Unfortunately, you may have to call if you want a longer discussion in the future.
No, you're good. I woke up too late. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning now. Essentially, my parents are really into Trump and stuff. And obviously, we're English, so it doesn't affect me quite the same way as it does if we were, living with you lot. Sorry about that. But it's kind of difficult, and they're becoming kind of feels more culty every time I talk to them, and I have no idea how to work with it. Any tips would be great.
I'll give mine because mine's going to be short. Austin might have a better answer, but my answer is going to be, your question is technically specific, even though you might be looking for a broad answer. If you're talking about your parents specifically, I have no advice for you because my parents are still Mormon and MAGA. So specifically when it comes to how does a child approach conversations with their parents in a way that changes them, no idea, because I've never found it. I have thousands of emails of people whose minds I've changed, and neither of them have the name of my parents on it. So specifically couldn't tell you how to change your parents' minds, because there's a built-in mechanism in our minds to be able to dismiss our children easier on anything we don't want. It's something that has to do with, I assume, that we clean their poopy diapers, but our brains can much more easily dismiss our children than anybody else in the world.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a similar experience in that for a very long time, my parents and I were ideologically much more divided than we are now. And my parents and I align a lot more than we used to, but it's not because of anything specifically that I did. I wasn't able to kind of put them onto some kind of program and work them out of it. It required their willingness. I think I just continued to do what I was doing and say what I thought was true, and continued to, when asked questions by them, try to give them thorough, honest answers of my actual position. But whether or not they were interested or curious in actually exploring the answers I was giving them was really up to them. I'm currently dealing with it with another family member. I have another family member who is deep into the Trump world, and it's really, really hard. And I want him to be able to have conversations with me that are uncomfortable and difficult, and I want him to have a base level of curiosity, but I can't really do anything without his consent. I can't really do anything without his prerequisite curiosity. I do have a hypothesis that I think is interesting, which is that the more of a true believer a person is in a cause, the more I actually think that they are reachable. And what I mean by that is true believer is maybe not the right word, maybe a deep thinker, a thoughtful believer, because so there's different levels of which people might be bought into something. One might be the lower level of people who are just kind of grunts who don't really think much about, and I would kind of say, unfortunately, that was the guy that we were talking to earlier, is he's just not a very thoughtful person about his political ideology. He just sort of goes along with, well, that's what I heard. I don't know. That's what my neighbor told me. I don't know. Yeah. Who knows? He doesn't have a really thoughtful, personal, deep, the Mormons would call it a testimony of why he believes the way that he believes. And then there are the upper echelon people, the upper tier people who are opportunists, who make money off the ideology or see their proximity to power. And so they might be doing it for, scummy, soulless reasons, or there might be people in the upper echelon who are afraid to back down from it because they've gone too high to do anything else. So they sort of do it out of fear. But there are people in a sweet spot who are really thoughtful about their personal ideology. We got a lot of background noise in there, Yelena.
I was going to say, Yelena, if you can stop moving drum cymbals around, that would be amazing.
In all fairness, I'm in a hospital, so
if you could maybe mute your phone when you're not speaking, and then we won't mute you on our end, that would be perfect. Obviously when you speak, unmute, but that'd be best.
But anyway, I have this hypothesis, and I don't know if it's useful or not. That if you could just mute your phone on your end, Yelena.
I got it. That should be better. Sorry.
All right, thank you. But it's these people, because like myself, like I was a convert from a high demand religion that I really believed in, and I had a very thoughtful approach to my faith. I really wanted to make sure that I had a thoughtful, well-reasoned, eloquent rationale when people challenged me about my faith, and that I could explain it to them in a very well-reasoned way. So the reason why I deconverted, and most of the people in my life who I've talked with who have deconverted or had a faith transition are people who were very thoughtful about their ideology, who were very deep thinkers. And it was that intellectual curiosity that led them to be the kind of people who would be open to having their minds changed. And so I don't know, I think there is a sweet spot of the kind of person who can have their mind changed. They need the willingness, which you can't really give them. And, that's kind of it. Like they need that curiosity, but I feel like there's a lot of people who just aren't curious enough to change their personal ideology, or are benefit too greatly from it in a material sense to ever change it. So the only hope that I could maybe see for your parents is, are they intellectually curious people who could be curious enough to ask the right questions at some point?
I didn't change my siblings' minds either, but some of them did change. So at the most, like I'd say that I provided a spot for them that when they were comfortable telling me they changed, they could bounce things off of me, but that's pretty much it. So that's
who I've been. I've been that for a lot of friends and family members too, is just letting them know that I'm a safe person to come to when they're ready. That like I'm here saying what I believe in unapologetically, and they know that when they have those same questions and they want to talk to someone about it, they can come to me. And that's happened with lots of different friends and family members over the years. And but again, I've never been able to do it for them. They have to find that curiosity on their own.
But Yelena, I think that's all we really have time for here. If you have a final thought, but we gotta move through here.
No, that makes sense. I did go through but yeah, no, I guess I'll just keep trying with the logic, and hopefully they'll come to a point where they realize logic is the way to go.
Confrontation won't probably do you much good. We do confrontation here for the audience. Not rarely is the confrontation actually meant to try and change the mind of the person we're talking to.
Yeah, no.
But it can change the mind of observers. Yeah.
No.
Cool. Thank you, Yelena.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Good luck.
It does occasionally happen, though. We have had a couple of calls where by the end of the call, the person was like, okay, I'll go do. I remember there was one person when we were doing the election shows that I think the way it went was they were like, I'll go do my research. And if what you said is correct, I'll switch my vote to Harris. But I think there was like one like that. It's not most of them.
What I've heard in my life typically is from people who I've had confrontations with is the change doesn't happen until later. It never happens in the moment. It's always like they go home from the conversation and they sit with it for a day or two or a few weeks, and it eats at them that they don't actually have a good response to anything. They kind of run over the conversation in their head and go, damn it, I don't have good enough responses to anything he said. And I've had that happen several times where people have come back to me and gone, after that fight that we had, I kept replaying the conversation and I kept knowing that I don't actually have a good enough response to anything you said. And it led to me eventually, pulling on certain threads. So confrontation can be, it usually doesn't materialize in the moment.
That's why I do my question-based thing. It's like, I guess, bit Socratic, where it's like, okay, what is this thing that you supposedly support? What is this? What is this? What is, and show them the spot, because it tends to be repeated to me like, that was the thing I kept thinking about, was when you revealed that this basic thing I should have known, like in the case of Tom, he didn't even know why the pipeline had been canceled. That when you hit those things, it's, just wild. Anyway, we'll hit Narissa in Louisiana. You're on the line with Jimmy and Austin. A reminder, we're going to be kind of quick, so if you can be succinct in your, is that the right word, in your question?
My very, very best. Remind me what was the other word?
I don't know what you are asking me. Vulgarity?
Vulgarity?
The screener who I talked to gave me the name of something and I couldn't remember the second word. That's okay.
We don't have the screener in our ears or anything.
Oh my God, Jimmy. Oh my God. That's my first interaction. I'm so sorry.
It's all good.
Crazy.
You're fine. You're great.
But what's your question?
Well, it's more just an observation and I want to know if I'm missing something, because I listen to you all the time. And like, you're so up on all of the stuff. So I really just wanted to ask, all these federal workers have been fired and all these, and I don't think what people have been talking about enough on that Project 2025 is the fact that the Heritage Foundation has been training people through videos online on the Heritage YouTube site to replace all of those people. And in fact, just out of complete curiosity, I sent away for the packet that you had to fill out, because I wanted to see what the questions were when it said they were looking for loyal patriots who could. And I don't know, I just think that there's that coming, and I'm alarmed that none of the smart people, I haven't heard it out there. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I feel like I thought you were talking about some Doge stuff, but then you said some things that made me pop off of it. But in general, it says that your question was that what would we think of the replacement? So just granting if that is what's casing that, that's what's happening, that they're going to be replacing a lot of the people who they've been laying off with Project 2025 trained individuals. I mean, I would say I feel awful that sounds horrible. At this point, I don't know how far I'm kind of like at a spot where I'm like, okay, they're going to keep doing a lot of crazy shit. So at this point, all we can do is hope they do enough crazy shit that we can flip things in 2 years, or now we're only like a year and a half away, but midterms are coming up and they'll be at the end of next year. And so at this point I'm like, well, fucking that sounds awful. And hopefully it is obviously awful, like the tariffs have been, and we can flip everything back because everybody will notice that we have a failed president. But so the answer to your question is fundamentally bad. I feel bad about those things.
Well, yes,
thank
me
you.
too.
It was I don't keep you. I know you guys are running fast, so
yeah.
Thanks. I love all the line stuff. I want Matt to scream expletives at me someday, please.
Okay, well that's between you and him. And maybe some sort of payment system. I don't know how that all works, but go ahead, Austin.
I just want to say thanks for waiting, and yeah, it's all scary, it's all bad, it's all, it's as bad. I don't think that anyone is. I personally don't think that people can be too hyperbolic with the way that they're describing what's going on. And that's coming from a person who in the past I have been like, oh, people are a little bit using too strong of language or a little bit too alarmist, but this is a thing where I go, I've never seen it like this before, where it's like, this is the, kind of fulfillment of everything that we've been afraid of for the last 10 years of the Trump political era. But
I feel fortunate right now, given that I've been living in New Orleans almost 30 years. I grew up in Canada, but all of this idiotic stuff we're seeing from Trump, that's old news in Louisiana. I mean, we got Senator Kennedy and Cassidy. I mean, can you imagine? I think we've all had the best training for what's to come, and that's the problem down here is people have to keep the pressure on it. People are worried that they're, in the Deep South, that they're filming the protests and you're going to end up on lists and stuff. That kind of stuff is it's scary, but who knows?
I think if I'm Lindsey Graham, I'm glad Senator Kennedy joined because my voice suddenly seems very masculine in comparison. All right. Thank you, Narissa.
Thank you, Jimmy. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Senator Kennedy is like a cartoon stupid person.
Yeah.
Last
There's
one, and then we'll do, if you want super chats, you got to get them in now because we're definitely not going to be staying much longer. So get your super chats in now. The show will end when the super chats run out. David in Virginia, you are on the line with Jimmy and Austin. David, how are you?
Hi guys. Is the audio okay?
You're just fine. I think the answer to your question will also just be bad, but go ahead.
And what was my question?
Well, I see in the notes, what are your thoughts on atheist maggots, like MAGA guys, and bad thoughts?
Well, look, I don't think they exist. Do you know of one?
Oh yeah, I know of creators even. I'm not gonna plug them. It would make his whole fucking year. He's trying to make a career off of seeing if he can get us to interact with them. But yes, I know MAGA and conservative atheist creators.
I haven't seen any of those, but I've seen like queer conservatives or just the people that should know better, the Candace Owens types, people like that you just kind of go, what are you doing? I feel like one of the saddest videos I've ever seen on the internet is that time that Dave Rubin and Ben Shapiro did a show together to try to show, like, look how much better we are at being friends on the right than the left is. We're so much better at honoring intellectual, ideological diversity. And they just have that really awkward, sad conversation where Ben Shapiro just has to admit to Dave Rubin that, like, he doesn't approve of anything about his life. Like,
wouldn't come to
Dave,
his wedding.
Yeah, and Dave kind of goes like, yeah, but you'd like make us a cake if it was like our anniversary, wouldn't you, Ben? And he's like, I don't think so. And then he's like, okay. He's like, but you'd like come to like a party. Like if we invited you to like an anniversary party, you and your wife would come. And Ben's like, honestly, I don't think I would. And he's just kind of like, okay.
Your impression
cool.
would go up 100 points if you would just say it through your eyebrows. I don't think I would.
Sorry, I don't actually think that. Sorry, I'd actually have to really think about that. But,
that's really good.
It's like a really sad video. Like it's just like, oh, like they did this whole thing to show how much better they are at honoring ideological diversity, and you can just kind of see Dave Rubin in real time be like, okay, so this guy really thinks that like me and my husband are bad people.
There's like a compilation out there of Republican commentators melting down over finding out Dave Rubin was gay after they worked together. Like it's bananas. But anyway, bad. And yes, I do. So here's the thing, man. Atheist doesn't mean smart. Atheist doesn't mean skeptic. I literally started my career as Mr. Atheist. It is what I arguably became, and I hate this word, but quote unquote famous as. And I was pretty disillusioned pretty quickly with my assumption that I would be joining a group of rational, humanistic people. And it turns out being a rationalist, being a humanist, being a skeptic are all separate terms. Now, I wouldn't say I respect people who call themselves skeptic and have any other term before that besides atheist. I think it's hard to be like, oh, I'm a skeptic and a Christian. Are you now? I'm a Nazi and a socialist. Like that's kind of pretty contradictory despite what Republicans think the name meant. Anyway, and by the way, I chose that on purpose because there are skeptics who call themselves Christian skeptics. It's quite contradictory. Anyway, they suck. And there are literally atheist Nazis. There are what's that fucking dude's name? I'll mention one because now I feel like he's in that category with like Andrew Tate now. Stefan Molyneux. He was like he was getting big as like an atheist person back in the day when it was like old school atheist YouTube. When Matt still didn't have hair, but it looked like he should more. And I hope somebody tells him I said that. He was growing in that time, and then he became a quote unquote race realist. And those fuckers came around. So there's one. I'll bet you he's a MAGA douche.
I also think that people like that fall into the category of what I was telling the previous caller, or what I was telling Yelena, which is that they're not very thoughtful about their ideology. So I see this all the time with like in like the LDS church that I was raised in and the Mormon church, that people will sort of kind of have their own faith transition and step away from it. But when I probe into like what their faith transition is about, it's just kind of like very skin deep and surface level. It just kind of comes down to like, it's literally what the church says about people, where it's like, oh, you just wanted to sin. Like you just wanted to drink and smoke pot. And I've actually met those people who it really does seem like their step away from, going to church every single week is just kind of like, I just wanted to like have sex outside of marriage, and I wanted to smoke pot and I wanted to drink, which, hey, I get it. That stuff's fun, but it doesn't actually seem like they were any more thoughtful about it than that. And that's probably because they were never very thoughtful about being Mormon in the first place. It was just something they did because that's what they were raised to do. And I think that similarly, these people who sort of live in these contradictory ideological camps aren't thinking deep enough about any one of them to understand why it's such a hypocritical mess. They're just sort of like, oh, well, I like this part of this. I like that when I'm a part of MAGA, I get to like say like slurs. I like that. But I also, like that when I am an atheist, I get to make fun of things that I think are stupid about Christian people. And they're not really thinking deeper about it than that. They're not thinking about why those two things shouldn't work together. They're just sort of like, yeah, it works for me because I want the fun parts of it.
There are too many atheists who their entire personality is being anti-trans to not like those guys are a lot of the MAGA also atheist based. The people who are just like the people who ironically will like scream about, look at the way they melt down when they're called the pronoun, but no one melts down more than them when they're just asked for their pronouns. If someone say, hey, what are your pronouns? They melt down 10 times as hard as anybody melts down by being called the wrong one. It's pretty ironic and hilarious. Anyway, David, so the answer to your question is bad. I feel bad about atheist MAGA.
Okay, just one more thing for you. I know you had a Mormon background, right?
Both of us. Yeah.
Both of us. Yeah, both of us.
Both of you. Okay. Well, hey,
he got it to be in. You made it to the office of elder, right?
No, I got out at 18.
Okay, that's about me too. I only made it to priest.
Yeah.
Anyway, my proposition is the most delusional people in the world are Mormon.
No.
MAGA. No, wait, hold on. Mormon, MAGA, flat earthers.
Mormon, MAGA, what?
Mormon, MAGA, flat earthers.
Okay.
No, Mormons aren't even the worst cult. Like, and then when you're talking about delusion, I would actually say that somebody who is, I would say like somebody who claims to be a socialist and MAGA would be more delusional because of the cognitive dissonance. You could at least justify. Scientology is worse. Jehovah's Witnesses is probably worse than both of them. Actually, I don't know if Scientology is worse. They're like the worst parts of Scientology are worse, but as far as like the consistent main membership, it's not. So your average experience is going to be better, but Jehovah's Witnesses and the Christian side of things are worse. And then fundamentalist Islam are worse than both of them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know there are some of those out there. I'd like to see the Venn diagram on that.
Sure. Listen, I've said before to people that I think, like I was speaking at this thing one time, and I talked about being raised Mormon, and this guy afterward came up to me and was like, "Hey, I'm former Mormon too." I go, "Oh yeah," and he's like, "You got to admit, the book it's a hell of a book, right?" And I was like, "I will not admit that." I was like, "It's a pretty poorly written book." I was like, "But what I will tell." And I was like, what I will tell you is, as a piece of 19th century Bible fan fiction that was written through dictation, it's pretty impressive. That he wrote it through dictation, lost a lot of the book, and then had to redo it. I'm like, okay, all right.
I don't know.
There's kind of a fun little trick there. Like there's kind of a fun.
I don't even think it was a dictation thing, though. I think him and Oliver Cowdery. I mean, it's just a ripoff of so many things around that I think it's mostly a plagiarized. Just start with it's 19th century Bible to View of the Hebrews and other books of that period of time. Yeah, it's like it's not original. I don't know. The thing sucks. We did chapter by chapter over on Aaron Ross channel. If you ever want to watch, if anybody ever wants to watch, literally us read one chapter per episode. I think it was. Might have been occasionally a couple, but it was bad.
It's a silly book. I always talk about how I think it's funny that the book of Nephi is like essentially. It's written by Nephi. It's like this guy's diary of his life. And in his diary, he's like the best guy in the world. And everyone in his family is like a terrible asshole. And he's just like, my brothers are just awful people, but I'm a really good guy. And this is like his firsthand account of like what a great person he is. And bunch of
Laman and Lemuel's first sin was that they doubted their father, who was old and like basically an apocalyptic preacher. And being like, well, we got to abandon everything. And it's like, should we maybe bring some cash with us? Bah! Like fucking crazy shit. But then, I don't know, the whole thing, when it's written by his perspective, like, it's very Bill Maher-esque, talking about what a hero he is. Bill Maher does that shit.
What I mean when I bring that up though is that like there's elements to the origin story and the mythos that people like when we talk about how delusional do you need to be a person who believes in the Mormon origin story, and it's like when you're raised with it and you're taking it in the context of what's like the idea of angels talking to prophets and revealing things to them and holy books and stuff, it all feels like it maps into as a, like I call it a piece of 19th century Bible fan fiction, because it feels like it maps into that kind of lore reasonably fine, where you're like, well, hey, if we're already accepting that God's talking to people as a burning bush and is
exactly,
then like why wouldn't an angel show up to this kid and reveal a hidden, like why not?
That's the only reason it's obviously more dumb, because it was so recent. We can trace its fraudulent origins, like it's easy to see that. But overall, like the things within it, I'm like, I live in a world where people do not fundamentally understand their relationship to the stars, that they think that the relative appearance of them from us could influence their personality in like a magical way. And I do want to make sure this is clear in case anybody's watching. Astrology is bullshit, and it's basically birthday racism. So anyway, David, anything else before we let you go?
No, that's it's been a great show, guys.
Thanks.
I've heard the whole thing.
Awesome. From the holds, I think. Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I hate astrology. I can't tell you how much I fucking hate astrology. I like
birthday racism is great. That's great. Yeah. That it's just literally eugenics about like, no, you're this kind of person. You're this.
It is. But what's funny is a lot of people will do the same thing with like certain religions. They'll be like, but it's harmless. It's not hurting anybody. First of all, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So if it's untrue and people are perpetuating entity, it's by nature a predatory industry. So you can't say it's doing no harm. But then I've actually had people contact after we did the series who were like, no. My parents are like LA hippies who take this shit very seriously and forced me to do like electives, not based on what I felt like I wanted to do, but on what they said my star chart said. It affected who I was allowed to date, like all of this shit. Like the people who take it seriously at that level you would expect out of a regular religion, it's just as harmful as anything else. It like looks identical basically. So it's dumb to be like, well, it's not hurting anybody. Have you checked? Have you fucking checked? And if you spent money on a lie, you've been hurt by it. It's just real dumb. Real dumb. I'd love to do like a really hard debate on somebody who actually will claim to be and would be for the most part accepted by like the people who believe in like, because obviously I did a thing where I hired, granted through Fiverr, a bunch of professional astrologers to do these readings and anonymize things to prove that it was bullshit. And it does a good job. But all I got was a bunch of messages like, well, you should have used this astrologer. That would have set you straight. Even though it's the exact, and it's just unbelievably, actually, it's believably dumb. You good to read some super chats with me?
Let's do it.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, brother.
I got to move my screen out of the way. There we go.
Well, this one starts
$10 from Jamnick06 says, Austin, when you were at Epic Universe, did you catch the Untrainable Dragon show in the Isle of Berk? If so, you may have seen me as one of the Viking drummers. I was at Epic Universe. I was at Universal in Hollywood, Universal Studios. Is that Epic Universe? Is that the same thing? I don't know, because I don't know about this Untrainable Dragon show in the Isle of, I don't know what that is, but I think that's cool that you are one of the drummers in the Untrainable Dragon show in the Isle of Berk. I definitely didn't see that at Universal when I was there.
I assume that the Jamnick, you would have seen him because I assume you have like a whole paparazzi, like an entourage and then paparazzi following you. So you would have known.
Yeah, pretty much. Whenever I go anywhere, it's like that. So yeah, it's really hard for me to keep a low profile.
I would.
Yeah.
I'd be right there with a camera, big camera guy. Firebird says, hi, Jimmy. I understand you're autistic and I work with autistic middle schoolers. Do you have a message for them? I don't think I'm allowed to say no, right? Because I kind of don't. I think I genuinely don't have a message for them.
The message is, don't worry, kids. RFK's on the case. He's got it.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
Don't worry, kids. RFK's going to figure it out.
I think it's cool that your teacher knows you have autism because my teachers didn't. They just thought I was weird. And everybody else. That's cool.
$4.99 from Dimitri the Wanderer, who says, I petition we rename Homo floresiensis to half squatch.
I'm in.
Do you know do you know how to pronounce that word?
Homo floresiensis. I mean, that's not really. It's been years. Floresiensis is pretty much, Floresiensis.
What is that? What is Homo floresiensis?
I think that has to be our like most middle transitional species between us and I would say some of the other greater apes. I don't think it's between us and monkeys. Let me see.
All right. Hasquatch.
What is let me.
Were they like one of the species that maybe coexisted with Homo sapiens?
No,
they were like
only
still
Homo
alive.
Neanderthal would have coexisted, except for like during the period where Homo erectus was. But I don't think there were any other Homo species besides. There's a period of time where you might have called a fossil Homo erectus and you might have called it a Homo sapiens, so that would be the closest. But the only simultaneous Homos were Homo Neanderthal and as cousins, not as descendants. Archaic humans that lived on the Indonesian island of Flores. Trying to see where they fall. Lived from about 100,000 to 50,000 years ago, possibly surviving the. Right. Wait, that suggests that it would have been the same time as Homo sapiens. So maybe what I just said was totally wrong. Possibly surviving until the arrival of modern humans. So I think it's saying like they were sort of in an isolated spot and then we found them and killed them all.
Oh, cool.
We do be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And they think that some scientists think it descended from earlier Homo erectus populations that became isolated. So it's kind of like what would have, the joke is because they were also evolved from Homo erectus, but they evolved very small. They were dwarf-like, so half Squatch because they're very small.
Half Squatch.
I get it now.
Gotcha.
I'll get it now. On to the next one. I refuse to live in a world. This is from Mr. Kiki. I refuse to live in a world where AI Jimmy does a better impersonation of Trump than real Jimmy can. I'd accept AI Jimmy for any other reason, though. Well, in that case, is it even really an impersonation, or are you just having my picture play the Trump AI audio? I mean,
who can say? $9.99 from Nuzzy D, who says, great show. At what point is violence a rational response to neo-Nazis? The T-admin just deported a 2-year-old citizen. If they can do it to her, they'll do worse to us. I'm not even gonna lie.
Hang on. I would really appreciate actually if you don't answer this one, because we have an answer from the line, and that's because I own the line and it's mine. If it's consistent with it, you can totally repeat it, but I usually wouldn't be like, it must be me first. I don't know what the correct answer is. I don't know that we haven't passed that, but it doesn't matter because the line is going to always be a communication hub. All resistances, even ones that have to turn violent, have the nonviolent communication area, and clearly that is the area that we are in. Though you might, who knows, maybe you'll see Forrest Valkai go fight on the front lines. I don't know what's going to happen. But on our end, it is important for us to maintain our communication branch, even if that changes in the future. Maybe something so extreme happens that I'm like, no, I do feel like I have to go fight in the Civil War. At the moment, it would be irresponsible for us to give any kind of recommendation to violence because it actually threatens our existence as a communication arm of resistance. So if it changes in the future, I don't know, but we're not going to comment on like, tomorrow is the day we march. Like we can't do that.
Yeah, I saw this infographic the other day that was talking about like, like any successful resistance has lots of different operations and arms. And it was like, pick your role. And there are all these different roles, one of them was definitely soldier, but one of them was propagandist. And I was like, proud propagandist right here. That's my role in the resistance. And that will continue to be my role. And not that role doesn't come without its risks. It does. It do. I'd be lying if I said I haven't been thinking about the fact that I'm probably on a registry somewhere where if they do want to come out and they know what my address is, if they want to come and start rounding up dissenting voices, I could be on that list somewhere.
Yo, look, this is what I pointed out to somebody the other day. I am a cis, I am het passing. I'm not heterosexual, but I'm het passing for the most part. Maybe that's me assuming. Why did I do my hair this way then? But I'm a cis het passing white man. For the most part, you would not assume that I'm in much danger. But then it's like been pointed out to me, like the number 2 in your company who, if something happened to you, takes over is a trans woman. Every Thursday, you do a trans education program. One of those people is I don't know if she's a child or just descendant of immigrants. Like from your standard cis het passing white man, chances of dying in an Argentinian prison, a little higher. Like, I'm not saying I expect that to happen. I hope it's still low, but I definitely hit this moment where I was like, oh, I might die in a prison one day. Like, if they keep winning and growing the way they're winning, like that might be what. And then with all my health issues, like as they are, I don't even think it would take that long. I think I don't think they're giving me my meds. I think I'd just probably die kind of quick. Just be gone. I don't know. Anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. Jesse's making fun of me saying I'm het passing. It was like people believed I was heterosexual when I used to say that, but they'd be like, all right, we'll take your word for it.
I think that you might be more passing than me, but
if you're straight, this is literally a revelation to me. I am currently dating I am in a very heterosexual relationship at the moment, and it's going so well that like some days I feel like it has undermined my queer side, where I'm just like, I'm feeling weirdly domestic. That's how good this relationship's going. I'm like, I don't know. I've never really wanted this before, but I love this woman so much. I kind of just want to go and start a homestead and raise children. Like, it's weird, gross stuff. It's yucky, but I'm also too old and sick to go beyond the front lines. It turns out I was totally wrong. Depending on when you map, I think it must have been continental or something, but for the most part, I think it is. In Europe, there, I think we're only Homo sapiens and Homo Neanderthal. I think that's what I was mixing up thinking about the book Sapiens, but there were Neanderthals definitely, but apparently there was also the Homo Denisovian. I have never heard of this. I don't, but they also lived in the times of both. And then obviously Homo floresiensis, Homo luzonensis. I looked these things up because I was like, man, I said that confidently, and I don't want to be wrong and get called out by all the comments, which there's already been enough time. All the comments are coming. It doesn't matter. But and then Homo naledi. All of these survived to roughly the same with overlapping periods of time. My bad. I was wrong, for the record. Come at me. All right. Leilani, hey, how have you been? 999 says, so glad to be home with Jimmy and Austin, and the line Ohana. Does that not look like the word Leahona to you? Did you get a little Mormon going when you saw the line Ohana? Yeah, I was. Yeah, sure. I thought it was that at first. Anyway, Mormon thing, people. Had a month-long hospital scare. I'm extremely sorry. That's I'm glad you're home though. It sounds like I'm glad it was just a scare. Home. Yeah, keep making good trouble. Can't stop, won't stop.
So happy you're home. That is scary.
Mm-hmm.
We got $10 from Homespun Covers, who says, the caller that just kept saying, I don't know about that. I loved how you kept his feet to the fire. It made no difference to him, denial, but appreciate your ability to shut him down relentlessly. I mean, that was probably, our one call on this show where we actually had someone to push against. But boy, I got to say, I was really bored with the tedium of, I don't know about that, over and over and over. But the way that he would confidently assert a position and then be taken to town, just have no basis for why he thinks that. And then he would just go, well, I don't know about that. And it's just like, okay, then why'd you say anything?
I'm very resentful of people willing to vote against what happens to me. If you're not going to care about yourself, fine, but you're going to vote against what happens to me and my friends and my people I love, and then just people in general under a lot of things you just don't know. Well, I don't know about that. If they were at least confident and could speak to things that, even if I thought they came to the wrong conclusion, but if they had a collection of data and information that was wrong, I'd still be like, all right, well, at least I get why you did it. Whereas this person, it's like, dude, just don't vote then. Don't.
Yeah, he just had such a casual approach to his political ideology. It was just like, oh, this is what I think because of this. And it's like, okay, here's why that's wrong. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. It's like, well, then, but I don't think he was wrong when he said he was helping us out. He gave us a show.
That's true. So, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Jessica Gallagher says, here's a little cheddar so Jimmy can buy himself a sandwich. Thank you, folks, for your entertaining and immensely important work that you do. I hope one day I get to have a sandwich, but I am still in a very limited diet for my health stuff. So I did a very recent thing. I might even post it on Instagram. It's so cool. I bought a machine. So one of the few things I can have now, and it's kind of been iffy, but I can have vanilla yogurt. So that's 5 foods I'm up to. And vanilla yogurt, I had to get rid of. I was trying to have one piece of dark chocolate a day, and even that was fucking with me. But vanilla yogurt, and I bought a machine that can turn it into frozen yogurt soft serve by Ninja. Oh, cool. It's incredible. Even though it just tastes exactly like yogurt, like frozen yogurt, usually you add cream and sugar and maybe a few other things to regular yogurt to get to. This is just regular yogurt, but frozen. But then it has that consistency. Totally tricks my brain. I haven't had a dessert in a year, and it totally tricks my brain into thinking I'm having dessert. It's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. $5 from Jamnik06, who's back and says, my bad, Austin. I thought you meant Universal Orlando. Isle of Burke is from How to Train Your Dragon and is next to Nintendo Land at Epic Universe. I haven't been to Orlando in 20 years. Genuinely. The last time I was there, I was 18 years old. And I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I'm 37, so 19 years ago. Yeah.
I thought you were younger than me. I'm 35. I can be president now. I was also in Orlando Not 20 years ago. Last time I was in Orlando would have been like 23 years ago because we lived in Sebring back then. Back in the day. A town that no one knows about and yet so often is shown on a map when they show Florida and they're doing the big weather map of the whole state. Sebring's almost always on it. And it's like no one knows.
I've never heard. This is the first time I've ever heard Sebring, Florida.
Maybe you've heard of the car. Yeah. There's a car.
I know Jacksonville. I know, Miami. I know Orlando. I know, but I don't know
2 hours south of Orlando. It's like 100 miles south. Yeah. Right. Dead center too. 1-8 Heathen says, knock, knock, who's there? A jerk who doesn't know how to tell a knock, knock joke. What's a knock, knock joke?
What a jerk. $9.99 from Nuzzy D again. Thanks, Nuzzy D. Says, heard. Thank you for your answer. On a better note, any advice for a prospective content creator? I'll tell you what I tell everybody whenever I get asked this question, which is I don't know anything. I don't know any secrets. I don't know anyone who actually does. Anybody who tells me that they know all the secrets, I think they're full of shit. Nobody knows how the algorithm actually works. It's a slot machine. It's a casino. The only thing I know in 5 years of doing this full time is, and I don't know, Jimmy might have better tricks than me, is consistency. Is like, you've just got to do it. You just like have to keep doing it. And the only way to get better at it is to be bad at it for a while. Like if you've never done it before, if you've never made videos before, you're probably going to make bad videos for a while. And the only way to make better videos is to make bad videos. And you just kind of like have to keep doing it and not quit. Even, I mean, I did it for 5 years before I had a video go viral. Doesn't take everybody that long. It took me that long. And so I just
took me about 6 months, but no big deal.
Yeah.
I would recommend you not do it, but
yeah,
I actually think you asked that because you know how I feel about being a content creator. I hate being a public figure. I recognize my position now, and that's why I've tried to change the platform I built and everything to now putting more people forward who I think I would rather people pay attention to than myself. But I do like being in content and making content. I just hate the public figure side of it all by a lot. I would recommend you not make anything unless you genuinely will enjoy it. Or if you know that what you enjoy isn't going to grow, your growth strategy should be 2 to 1. Make 2 things for the audience, 1 thing for you. Don't let those 2 things, like 2 things within your values, but, and then 1 thing for you. And that's a better growth strategy than just like, I'm only going to make the things. Most of my content from my old days that's now unlisted on archives are not things I'm passionate about, but I would make, my ratio is way worse. I would make 5 to 10 things for the audience. For every 1 Mormon video I made, which is what I really cared about, I was making trad, wife, fundy, snark kind of stuff, like 6 or 7 things. And now I hate those old videos because I actually think it also became a sort of toxic thing within me. And I only really like the old Mormon videos, those old Mormon, but anyway, 2 for the audience, 1 for you, is the best growth strategy if you want to keep yourself true or something.
Mm-hmm.
But also just don't do it. Being a public figure is miserable. Actually, if you enjoy it too much, I probably think there's something wrong with you. I probably like people who are like public figures who are like, I love being a public figure. I'm like, oh, so people haven't figured out what a piece of shit you are yet?
I've had, my friends have asked me so many different times, like, how famous would you like to get? And I go, no more than I already am. Like, it's like I say, I can deal with the amount I get recognized in public right now, which is like 2 or 3 times a week. And I already find it sometimes a little bit like overwhelming to know that when I'm in like a space with a lot of people, there's a chance that there's like 10 to 20 people who are like aware of me being in that space in a way that's weird. But I don't, I can usually move through the world and not really notice it for the most part because I live in Los Angeles and there's way more famous people than me walking around on the street every day.
No.
But I don't want it to get bigger than this. And I never really wanted to be famous in the first place. The only thing that it's good for is just like being able to stay relevant enough to keep working and to keep making money.
That's true. That helps.
Yeah,
it helps keep me here. I would say my main incentive now is to build something that I am not the face of, but I have a specific set of skills that is good at production, logistics, and even organizing atheist assholes. And we are all assholes, and atheists are the hardest people to organize. And yet I pull it off. And so, by the way, to that end, I should mention 2 weeks from today is the big Recovering from Religion, The Line fundraiser. And we're going to be doing some awesome events all in the week leading up, but we're going to try to raise I'd say our goal is $50,000, but the stretch goal is more like 75,000 since we did 69 last year. How are we not going to beat that this year? So be on the lookout for that because that's one of the things that I actually am proud of pulling off each year. That shit actually matters to me. Recovering from Religion fundraiser, May 10th. All right, we'll pop through these a little faster. That's my bad. ZM says, thanks for what you do. ZM, thanks for what you do. That $5 is going to go to a good bag of chips. I'm just kidding. It would go for a good cause.
One-Eyed Heathen says, what do you call a cross between a male member and a potato? It's a dictator?
I think it's supposed to sound like dictator.
So I guess it was supposed to be like Q and then A, and they forgot to put Q. Question. Yeah. I get it. Yeah. You know, a dictator.
One-Eyed Heathen, you're wonderful. I would have, if I was writing it, have put the word dick and tater as two separate words.
Yeah. When I was in my 20s, I lived in this like anarchist punk house, and we had a picture of Gordon B. Hinckley over our sink, and a dick was drawn on his forehead, and then the word tater coming out of the dick, and like it was like the word was like coming out like coming out of the dick. So it was, and one time my mom came into our house and it broke her heart. She looked at that. She was like, why? She was like, why him? And I was like, I didn't do it, Mom. Sorry.
That one was hard, man. To let go of Gordon B. Hinckley as a good person.
Yeah.
That was one of the harder parts of my deconstruction. Cause that was basically my grandpa. That was like, I revered him more than my grandpa's. So
yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, he sounded like the fucking popcorn dude, the theater kid from The Simpsons. How Donald Trump and Gordon B. Hinckley can become the heads of multi-billion-dollar organizations like that with their weird voices and appearance. And he literally just sounded like, "Here's your popcorn, Mr. Simpson. Well, in the name of Jesus Christ."
Whatever. Yeah, the squeaky voice. Yeah. One-Eyed Heathen says again, Elon Musk is the only human who managed to acquire $330 billion and still be a worthless person. Yeah. The guy is just going to be a loser till the day he dies. That's for goddamn sure.
The famous expression is, he's so poor, all he has is money.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, a pretty apt one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What a fucking loser.
By the way, send us an email if you've gotten a DM on Twitch asking if you want a vial of his sperm. Because I assume, or on Twitter, I assume he just he's just like, can I send you a vial? Just like one after another. Like, fill out this form. I'll send you a vial of my sperm. Put it in you.
Crazy.
That's you read the story that he like slips into girls' DMs and asks to impregnate them.
No, didn't know that, but I'm not like surprised. Not surprised.
Pretty much what happened with Ashley St. Clair. I think is her name. She's awful too, but
sure.
Yeah, I still want to know if it's true. Is it true that he actually had botched penile surgery, or does he just act exactly like a person who had botched penile surgery? Austin, you want to remind people who you are and where to find you, and then we'll...
Yeah, I'm Austin Archer. You can find me here on YouTube or on TikTok or Instagram or Threads if you want to follow along on other stuff that I do. And it's just Austin Archer, Archer, like the show, that cartoon that some people like. And that's it.
Or like the war profession.
Yeah. If you ever want to just listen to me talking about stuff that's not politics or religion for whatever reason, I have a podcast called The Oner Podcast where I just talk about movies with my childhood best friend. And we just go see movies every week and then talk about the movie that we watched. And it's called The Oner, Oner, The Oner, with Austin Kramer. My best friend's name is Kramer. And yeah.
We're trying to get out, so I'll just go ahead and preempt the several live chats that are about to come in. No, I'm not on it. I've never been invited. I'm just kidding. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. I'm Jimmy Snow, and for that, I couldn't be more sorry. I'm not going to wait the whole time. I'm ending the stream. The music. Just sorry, people.